Good evening and welcome to Basalt Town Council's Tuesday, February 24th meeting. This is our work session. We're going to start, our regular meeting will actually start at 6. But we're going to have a work session on Parcel 2E community outreach and basically all the findings and results of those efforts. So Michelle, you have this and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick introduction here. We have our team here from Design Workshop and Charles Cuniff Architects, Allison and Ashley. And today we really are just we're not asking for a yes or no or anything. We're just giving an update and a report out on the community outreach. And then what will happen after this meeting is we'll have follow-up meetings on specifically construction costs and density discussions and information, and then a separate work session again just on the community space to talk about business plans and build out and all of those things. So this is just a report out on what we've been doing for the last year and a half, almost 2 years. So I'll hand it over.
Do you mind if I just make one edit? I want to note that in the packet there was a letter regarding 2E that went in the correspondence at the back of the packet. So that should have been included in this. It is in all of the printed packets, but not on the online version right now. So just wanted to point that out.
I think it is. I saw it.
Oh, did it get moved? Okay, I just wanted to double check. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Making sure our sharing here is working. Perfect. All right, hi, I'm Ashley Satterfield with Charles Cuniff Architects, and Michelle gave a great intro to the project. We're just here to give you an update today, so we will walk you through a summary of the timeline of the project, the direction that we received at the last work session, and then walk through the steps that the design team took to respond to that direction, and then talk about next steps. So I'll hand it off to Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm with Design Workshop. Been enjoying working with this team, and I'm excited to share a little bit on some of the public process that helped to inform this project moving forward. Starting off with just why are we here? Why does this project matter to the Basalt community? And it's probably no surprise that there's a significant need for housing throughout the Roaring Fork Valley. Recently, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment was presented to all of you, I think just a few weeks ago on January 27th, and that was included as an exhibit in this packet. We also know that there's gaps in the regional housing, which was reported in that housing needs assessment completed in July 2024. So this is a challenge in our communities that's been ongoing for quite some time. And there's a significant amount of units, 4,000 units needed valley-wide to help address some of our community challenges around traffic on Highway 82 and just some of those things that we see in our day-to-day lives. In addition, there's a significant need for youth space. We've heard this through many of our focus groups that it's important to provide youth, especially kind of that middle school age, a place to hang out that's safe and productive and helping them to become good members of society. In addition, there's kind of this idea around community space, and I'm going to share a little bit more about our exploration of this in future slides, but really a place for the Basalt community to come together, to foster that connection and really celebrate what it is that you love about living in Basalt, because it's really your neighbors and your people in those places where you gather. Oops. Sorry. Go back. All good. So this slide here shows a little bit of this entitlements process, and you can see we are just at the very beginning, at the end of concept and programming, and we have a long way to go until we would get towards anything that would be considered a final plan. That includes the whole sketch plan process and design revisions that'll come along with that, preliminary and final. So you're going to have the opportunity to see this plan many more times and really watch it evolve through comments from the community, as well as comments from staff and comments from all of you to help this project really be right-sized for the Basalt community. So this project actually started quite some time ago, back in early 2004, with the More Housing Now grant that was awarded from the state of Colorado, which allowed the town to issue an RFP for design and entitlement services. And so Design Workshop and CCA teamed up, responding to that RFP, and were selected as the consultants for this project. And then, we got to work, and it was, we had a kickoff with staff, and I'm going to share a little bit more about some of the engagement that we did in 2004 on the next slide. So we actually had a lot of fun in 2004. So throughout the fall, we had several different focus group conversations. We had one-on-one interviews with a number of different people who had kind of diverse perspectives that we wanted to learn and understand from. We had a couple different meet and greets at the Element Hotel with the neighbors to try and understand their concerns for the site and what's important to them. We had a really fun event with the Basalt leadership class where we played kind of this interactive game and allowed them to be a planner for the day to learn what it is that they would like to see on the site. And then we took that game out to the community, and it was a cold and snowy evening, but still we got a lot of people kind of interacting with us and talking to us about what this community space might look like. We also had a couple surveys so that we had some additional ways to do outreach through the Engage website and gather additional feedback on some of those concepts. And so we got some really good feedback. We had over 132 survey responses. A lot of dots placed on our visual preference boards. We had 26 different completed game boards that we kind of used in the process, and 9 separate focus groups. So we really tried to listen to a lot of people and a diversity of voices. And what came from that is that, number one, not surprisingly, housing is really important. And the idea of maximizing affordable housing is just a really critical community investment, especially for the families that live and work in these communities. And there's a direct implication with that to reducing commute times and traffic on 82. One of the questions that we asked in our engagement was kind of gauging from the community recreation space or community space. And there was definitely a lean towards this idea of a community space, and flexibility was definitely one of the most desired elements of that community space. So something that can really be used at all times of day. Interestingly, the high school students really wanted a basketball court. I think every high school student that we engaged with, that was like their number one thing. And so that's why we listen to a lot of different people and hear from different things, because the needs of a high schooler might be different than the needs of a senior resident, than the needs of, a young, 5-year-old who's looking for tumble time. So we're really trying to understand that diversity of perspectives. Within all of this, there's really a focus on kind of youth and families, which I think is just part of the Basalt community, this idea that this is a family-oriented community and thinking about spaces that might allow for after-school activities, learning, flexible programming to accommodate tumble time in the morning, maybe game night in the evenings, really thinking about that flexibility and adaptability. We also heard a little bit there was a desire for outdoor amenities and food, everything from vending machines to commissary kitchens. And so we really listened to all of that and integrated it into some different conceptual site plans. That work started early last year around this time, where we are starting to explore site layout, program, massing, how are we going to fit all of these needs on the site. And then we shared those ideas with Bach, we shared those ideas with you, we came back to the community with another neighborhood meeting to get their feedback on those ideas. We had a site visit with all of you last summer, if you recall, kind of walking around the parcel, and then came back to town council work session. And on the next slide, and from that, we heard to keep the community space in the overall planning concept, but to explore reducing the density. The current design at the time was 44 units, and to reduce the height of the Lewis Lane building. We heard that overall the height of the development is a concern, and really we wanted to do some additional outreach to kind of make these changes and then bring it back to the community to understand, how do you feel about this? Then it takes us to fall community engagement. Once again, we had, so we're like a year after our events from with our games and activities, we came back with these ideas to neighborhood coffee chats. We hung out in Starbucks, and people were allowed to kind of just drop in and share their thoughts and ideas with us in a really casual setting. We had 15 participants there. We had a neighborhood open house, so really targeted to the neighbors around the project site, and that way we could really have some one-on-one conversations with them, and we had about 19 participants there. And then we opened it up more broadly to the community to understand kind of how they felt about this as being part of the future of Basalt, and we've got about 35 participants at that event. So overall, about 69 attendees. We feel like we got some strong feedback. The visual preferencing exercises that we had really highlighted after-school youth programming, once again reinforcing that idea of flexible space, and then the idea of food. Food brings people together, so cooking classes were really top comments that we heard. We also heard a little bit about the site, so the desire to make sure that it stays native, that lighting is considered, and we're kind of thinking about kind of the art and cultural pieces and thinking about places for gathering when it comes to the site as well.
All right, so now we will present the content that was created for this round of community outreach. So we had 3 areas of focus that we studied. And so the first one was the aerial view and the study of the development within the context of town center and the surrounding neighborhood. So this was really kind of zooming out and seeing how the development on parcel 2E fits within the larger scale of the neighborhood. Then we looked at studying some key pedestrian views to really understand what the development looks like from that individual streetscape perspective. And then we provided reduced density study and scenarios to present options to either reduce the amount of square footage and reduce the height of the building. So this aerial is part of that large zoomed out scale that we looked at. So this is looking northeast. And so the rendering also includes the future massing for the Takaw Theater that they hope to build as a future phase right across the street from parcel 2E. This also incorporates some heights of the buildings in Willits Town Center, which many of them approach 40, 45, 50 feet in height as measured from the sidewalk scale. And then also want to kind of circle back on something we've talked about previously, the residential development that exists in town center. The average units per acre here is about 54 units per acre. And on parcel 2E, we're looking at a reduced density of about 30 units per acre at our parcel here. So this is the aerial looking in the opposite direction. Again, to just give you some scale of how it fits in the overall feel of the neighborhood. And then we kind of wanted to understand how the proposed buildings contribute to the streetscape. So this is kind of zooming in at the next step. The top image is a view from the 3rd floor of the Market Street lofts. So you can get a feel for the height and scale of how it feels when it's framed between the Lumen building and Takaw future expansion to the right. And then the image on the lower portion of the screen is the view from the 3rd floor of the Lumen residences. So zooming in a little bit more, you see One Willits Place on the left, and then the future Takaw expansion on the right. So the second portion of our design studies looked at the scale from the pedestrian height. So this is standing from the southeast corner of the parcel, and there's the key plan in the upper right that kind of gives you the where you stand in the view we were looking at. And we understand that when a lot is vacant for decades, it's difficult to finally see it developed, even if that development was planned as part of the original vision. So really wanted to kind of get a sense of, the scale of go back a little bit. Seeing the site as it exists today, and then adding that future Takah expansion to get the feel of the height and scale of that in the distance. And then we move into the block massing for the townhomes. We want to emphasize that this is block massing only. There's no fenestration, no materials. This is really just kind of, roof line and scale. And then adding in starting to ghost into townhomes and adding in the Willets Lane building behind, which from this particular view would not, you wouldn't see the Willets Lane building. And then adding in the Lewis Lane building behind that. So the majority of that building would be also blocked by the townhomes with the, in the upper right-hand corner, you see the partial fourth floor just above the roof line of the townhomes. And then adding in the landscaping and site improvements, really to help screen and filter views. And then, part of this project is really enhancing that vegetated buffer with the appropriate plantings and species. So now we're looking at the southwest corner of the parcel, looking east. So this is the site as it exists today. Again, we don't see Takah from this particular view, so adding in the townhomes. And again, the Willets Lane building and the Lewis Lane building. So, I think this view does a good job of understanding how the massings kind of stack behind each other to create the development. And then again, adding in the landscaping and site improvements to really help filter and screen here. There's a lot of, as you can kind of see on the right-hand side of the image, the trees and the screening works really well on a lot of areas in Willets already. So thinking that we would add to that streetscape. This is standing along Lewis Lane looking west, so you see the One Willets Place townhomes on the right of the image, the site as it exists today, and then adding in Takah and the townhomes, again, the Willets Lane building, and then the Lewis Lane building. So in all of these images, the Lewis Lane building is depicted with the partial fourth floor still included in the height. So you can see how the Lewis Lane building relates in height and scale to the buildings across the street. And then again, with the site improvements and the landscape improvements, we really see the streetscape as being a very inviting place for pedestrians to gather and build community and have events. And then the last part of our study looked at different density scenarios. So this was the design presented last August, just to give us a baseline. So the number, it's 44 units. All residential parking is parked on site, and that includes the guest parking for the residential units. The community center is approximately 13,500 square feet. 35 parking spaces for the community center would be provided as street parking along Lewis Lane. And again, this shows the partial fourth floor on the Lewis Lane building. And then the Willets Lane building holds 11 units. There are 10 townhomes and 23 units in the Lewis Lane building. So looking at our reduced density scenario, this takes off that partial fourth floor of the Lewis Lane building. And so we reduce the number of units by up to 6 units. So that's where we get 38 to 44 units. And so we can either, to reduce the amount of square footage, we can take it out of the units, or we can take it out of the community center. And that square footage is approximately 5,900 square feet. And then the Willets Lane building and the townhomes remain the same in the second scenario. So really it's about that fourth floor, that partial fourth floor, and removing that square feet and what program comes out of that. So we have a rendering view, very conceptual, very sketchy, not meant to really depict materials yet, but just kind of a feel of mass and scale. So a lot of work to move forward here, but, you know, this is showing the partial fourth floor on the Lewis Lane building. And then we also provided an image of doing just 3 stories there. So this concludes the content of everything that was shared during this last round of outreach. So now we'll get into what we heard.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, so kind of going back, we had those coffee talks, we had those open houses. Ashley shared a lot of what was shared at those meetings, and what we really heard, that there was kind of a mix of both positive and negative feedback, but in general, there was a lot of support for housing. Some of the concerns that we heard were around parking, traffic, and access, so making sure that parking can be accommodated on the site for the community uses, and that the street parking is regulated, and thinking about mitigation strategies to make sure that it's not creating a negative parking impact for the neighborhood. Overall scale, height, and intensity was kind of top of the conversation, so some concerns around the height and density and just kind of overall intensity of the uses. And so that exploration on the reduced massing really came out of that conversation with the partial fourth floor or the 3-floor option. And so that was something that we heard a lot of and wanted to make sure that we were exploring. And so we heard some, concerns on height and density, but we also heard some people saying that it felt contextually appropriate to the Willits neighborhood, which does have some of the larger massing of buildings in the town center area. That in general, kind of the land use mix of housing versus community space, I think there's generally support for the idea of the community spaces, and there's definitely support for the idea of affordable housing and having employees that can live and work in Basalt. And then I think very positive response to the overall site design and kind of livability. I think people were excited about the streetscape. They were excited about the rehabilitation of the vegetated corridor, which currently has quite a bit of invasives. So bringing that back to a more riparian, natural context. And thinking about some of the little pocket seating, pocket gathering spaces on the site that can contribute to that sense of community. So just once again, affordable housing was really a need and should be a priority for the community. There was some comments that suggest maybe using the site entirely for housing and thinking about putting the community space elsewhere. But then there was also kind of that same comment about the desire to see a space for community and where that right location might be. Once again, kind of height, density, and scale. That 3-4 stories, and then open space circulation. I think this pretty much covers comments from the community. So we did just want to kind of humanize, like, who might live here? And so we took a moment to be like, all right, who are the future residents of Sopris 2E? And so we have Polly, who's a preschooler. She comes to morning education programs and learns about nature play. She's got a little tumble time with her classmates in the gym space. Then we have Billy and Brian. They like to go use the basketball court after school. They're middle schoolers, and it gives them a really good place and safe place to hang out in their after school hours. We have Jen and Gemma, who use the gym space to practice choreography. And then we have Sonia and Sandra, who are local residents, and they could potentially live in the space, and they hang out there to meet with one another and play games, and so these could be some of your potential future neighbors. I did want to add that TACA did approve the concept of running a youth empowerment space for Polly, Brian, and Billy, and in the vacant town space near Mezzaluna. And so that is something that the town is currently working to explore of how can we think about kind of TACA as a real partner in this process, and explore some of those youth program needs. So recently, this could be Sonia and Sandra from our other slide. But Eagle County's Aging Well presentation was made Monday, February 9th, so just a few weeks ago, to the Eagle County BOCC. And that is really important, I think, to kind of emphasize the need for senior space in the community for that this project might be able to help to support.
And the potential for senior housing as part of the affordable housing component, giving people a place to go when they're, not willing or wanting to live in their homes anymore.
Yeah. There's also a recent update from the recreation director that he presented to council, which shows increasing participation, registration fees, and challenges with programming. And so the idea of incorporating some sort of community space might be able to fill some of the gaps that currently exist, especially around gym space, winter programming options beyond basketball. Since this is kind of an indoor space, it might allow for more diversified programs, as well as the opportunity to have overflow space for summer camps. There's a need for space, especially indoor space. Similarly, there's kind of this renewed focus on adult populations, and this could really provide senior housing. It could provide spaces for seniors to meet and gather, and be an opportunity to bring that population together as well. And all in all, this has, it can really help to revenue generation and growth within the community. So there's definitely positive impacts to the idea of a community space, and this shows how it could potentially increase revenue for the town of Basalt through recreation use.
So again, just want to emphasize that we're here to give you the update since our last work session with you, kind of let you know where we're at and what we've done. We understand that 2 additional work sessions after this are being proposed. So the first work session will address the affordable housing and address the density, cost per unit, phasing, and financing. And then in the second work session, it will address the community space and include the business plan and cost analysis to help, give more information about the feasibility of this project. And then once again, just want to talk about the project timeline. And, we started in 2024, we continued with public outreach, and we continued in 2025 with concept design and more public outreach. And in 2026, we're queued up to be able to move into sketch plan and entitlements. So really emphasizing we're not trying to rush this or fast track this. We want to do the right thing here. So thank you for allowing us to give you an update, and we're happy to take questions and look forward to feedback.
Thank you both. That was good information. We'll start off with questions from my fellow counselors. Or comments? Well, I'll make a couple here then. I think the next 2 work session topics make sense. As part of that, I've been talking about this a lot. What's the operating model for the community space? And then you got to kind of back the truck up to what are we going to use the community space for. I've been thinking about this. Different functions are going to require different, I guess, levels of an operating model as far as, I guess, the intensity and the tempo of it, right? If you're letting somebody into a basketball court, there's a code for it. I mean, that's a lot different than having to run something like what DeCau's proposing for their proof of concept, for lack of a better way to put it, over in the other condo. There's going to be somebody there staffed, right? So I think we have to get really clear about what we're going to do with that community space before we can really do the design. One thing that I would like to get out of the process are the outputs from what DeCau is doing. Some of it they probably already have from other doing the services or doing the programming they're doing in other places, but there's going to be new learnings that are going to come out of that. And so the timing, that's one thing with the timing that kind of makes me a little bit, gives me a little pause, is that I want to see how we do and what else we learn and what else comes out of what they're doing and how that kind of grows organically, so we can use some of that in what we're going to be basically, doing as a greenfield over in this new space. So the other things I had, there was a memo that we did on zoning. I think you guys did it a while back. I'd like to, when we get to the next work session on density, cost per unit, all that stuff, let's go back to that. It's not so, I mean, we've seen the letter in the packet, but like, what is the position on what we're able to do? What would, if it's PUD amendments or whatever, in order to accommodate what we're gonna do, like, I would like to make sure that we include that in the work session, just so we have a sense of kind of what we're talking about here, from our perspective. And the only other thing I had was, this is a lot, and 2026 we're here. We're almost a quarter of the way through it. I mean, that maybe not, might be a little bit of hyperbole there, but we're a good ways into 2026. We've got other priorities, so I want to make sure that we're looking at the prioritization from a staff perspective, and from, what does this council want to be spending the time on during 2026. We've got other things that we've got to be doing too, so we need to make sure that we're managing that from kind of an air traffic control perspective and a prioritization perspective. So those are all the comments. I didn't really have questions. I thought it was a great, clear prezzo, but just wanted to get that out there. What else do you guys have?
Well, the word intensity is being used a lot these days in other parts of the valley about the level of activity around different spaces and public spaces and theaters and concert venues and nightclubs and everything else. And I think what I'm seeing happen more and more is new land use applications come in and things redevelop. There's an example up in Snowmass that's going to happen, I guess. But the trend is to try to bring everything to everybody in these developments. And sometimes you have to kind of sit back and go, do we need to have everything here? Can we have a place that's just got a little bit more peace and quiet engaged with it, or like you're bringing in the point of view of nature and the streetscape? And I think one of the things that as an example is, our river park. It's great, but if there's an intensity level there that's being reached, and it was intended to be a passive park initially with some boating and some other activities, and much smaller. There was a children's area, play area over there, and now we have a band shell, we have playgrounds, we have swing sets, and it's great. It's got a miniature golf course, but I think that once in a while you got to step back and go, okay, where's the calming place? Where do you go to get some respite from your drive down Highway 82 and your job and maybe some other things that are going on in your life? And I also think the connection between children and seniors is really important too. Both don't need a lot of intensity. Children are just fine with the less intense environment sometimes, and seniors, I know, speaking for myself, do enjoy relaxing evenings and things like that too. So I think we're looking at, that's what I'm looking at in this, is are we trying to fit everything into this thing? Or are we trying to say what is priority now and what is priority later? So that, I think, maybe making it a little bit smaller would address some of that. Not have programming 24/7, that kind of thing.
Thanks, Rick. What else?
I think it was an informative session. I appreciate it to update us on where we're at on this, project. I think most of my questions or concerns will be better suited for some of the following work sessions. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add that on some of the zoning questions. You know, we did receive a letter from the Cypress Meadows One HOA's attorney. I did put a letter together to council that I didn't get out until this afternoon, just with some thoughts on the issues raised there, which I think would be well suited to have some discussion in exec session, and then get it, you know, we can figure out the right timing of that, but then have those discussions as to, you know, uses and density and so forth in these continued work sessions, you know, as town council determines how it wants to proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it might be good to have that exec session to level set before we do
Yeah.
the work sessions. Okay.
I would appreciate that, because just in reading through the packet today and going back through the master plan, I don't see on 2E in the master plan where it says that it allows medium density housing. And I've only been on council for 4 years, but I've seen other proposals for 2E, and my understanding was always that the housing component was intended to support whatever the public facility was on 2E. So it made sense to me when there was a childcare facility that needed 6 units for their teachers. And I think that's what people in Cypress Meadows and in Willits have expected. So I would really appreciate if somebody could explain to me why we're putting medium density housing on a parcel that isn't zoned that way.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that
Yeah,
discussion. Sure thing.
I want to understand it. I haven't been able to understand it, and I think, you know, I'm not the only one, right? There's a lot of people in the neighborhood who don't understand it and who have been, you know, very supportive of a community center. I think that's what we started out talking about 2E, was we do want that community center, and now we're so fortunate that TACA is going to give it, you know, a test run for us, and we can learn so much from that. So personally, I'm comfortable with seeing where TACA goes with the community center and how successful it is before we make more decisions about another community center. And thank you for all your hard work. You guys have done so much in your outreach, and just a really great presentation.
Yeah, I will add, I think that I do want to applaud y'all as well, and staff for staying on it, because I think a lot of times we do get, we hear from community members that there hasn't been enough outreach, and I feel like on this project, we are meeting the bar there. So thank you to staff and to you guys for stepping up on that, because I think that everyone that wants to be is well aware of you know, what's going on with this parcel, and that's the intention.
I agree, good point. Do you have anything, Hannah?
I think most of my questions will be answered later, or once we kind of have an exec session about this. But yeah, just echo, I think the democratic process here of doing community outreach. I see TACA and ECF and others in the room. That's a really positive sign in my eyes, making sure those nonprofits are engaged and involved, and I love that we're getting feedback directly from kids. So I appreciate that part.
Thanks, Hannah. Dieter, did you have anything? I don't want to ignore you online.
I do not at the moment.
All right, well, thank you very much. Well, we're scheduled to go to 5:45, but I'll take the 4 minutes unless anyone has anything else. And we'll go ahead and take our council break before our regular meeting at 6. Thanks again for a great presentation, a lot of great information. Yeah, the renderings in particular, I was like, oh, I'm a visual person, so it was really helpful. So appreciate all your work on this project.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see y'all at 6. Thanks. Good evening again, and welcome back to our regular regular town council meeting for the town of Basalt. Today's Tuesday, February 24th. Just a couple notes before I call the meeting to order. I wanted to remind everybody, if you want to join the meeting online, you go to basalt.net and go to the Agendas and Minutes tab. Click on the February 24th meeting packet, and you'll see instructions in there to join via Zoom for those who are maybe watching on Grassroots or want to interact later on in the meeting. And with that, I will call the meeting to order. And Pam, will you please call the roll?
Happily. Let's see, let's begin with Dieter Schindler. Yeah, he's on mute, but, okay, we'll maybe come back. Angela Anderson,
Present.
Rick Stevens,
Here?
Hannah Berman,
Here.
Angela Dupré-Bouchard,
Here.
Ryan Slack. He's probably going to join later. David Knight,
Here.
we'll give Dieter another chance here.
Peter, you there?
Peter, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Okay, so he's off now. He's probably on his way in. Okay, so we have the vast majority of the crew here.
Great, thank you. So next up, we have our consent agenda, item 2. Quite a few items, I'll go through them. Item 2A, which is the minutes from February 10th, 2026. 2B, the resolution number 4, series of 2026. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, granting approval for a community garden on the Grace Sheehy open space parcel that's jointly owned by the town of Basalt and Picking County for the 2026 growing season. 2C is resolution number 7, series of 2026. Resolution of the town of Basalt, Colorado, authorizing the town manager to apply for a 2026 Colorado Department of Local Affairs grant. 2D, reappointment of Green Team members, reappoint Charlie Eckert and Eileen Fagan to the Green Team for 3 years, for 3-year terms to end February 24th, 2029. And I think, is Charlie here? And Eileen, okay, well, thank you for your service and coming in. And then we have reappointment of Basalt Public Arts Commission member, reappoint Karen Andrade to BPAC for a 3-year term to end February 24th, 2029. Ms. Karen, thank you for coming in. This is going to be a pretty quick agenda item despite all the reading, so I appreciate you all coming in. And then last, we have item 2F, reappointment of a Planning and Zoning Commission member, reappoint Kyle Obercotter to P&Z for a 3-year term to end February 24th, 2029. I don't see Kyle. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented unless anybody wants to take any of these items off and discuss separately.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, and thanks to Charlie, Eileen, and Karen for coming out tonight. And thank you for all your service for your boards. Next up, we have our call to the public. And that's, you can talk about anything, but you should, if you want to talk about any of the topics where there's a public hearing later in the meeting, I would encourage you to wait and make your comments in conjunction with those agenda items so they can be on the record for those agenda items. Otherwise, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and address your comments directly to me. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments, and there's a sign-in sheet in the back of the room as well. And then comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive, and we will make no decision or take any action except to direct the town manager. And so with that, I will open it up for public comments. And I've got the trusty timer going here. I'm usually not timer guy, so bear with me. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Excuse me, Saul Abrams, live on Soper Circle in Basalt. My comment is regarding the Sopers 2E parcel. I know we just listened to a work session on that, and I just wanted to share some thoughts on how that's gone from a neighbor perspective. First of all, there's 2 points I'd like to make. One has to do with the process of outreach, and the other has to do with the legal aspect of the project. The first was, I felt the process was flawed. I know that the presentation talked a lot about community outreach, but having been in the construction and development industry the better part of 20 years, we often see those ideas brought in big picture and then multiple ideas brought back to the community and more of an iterative process. What we saw with this process was, here's our idea, town, take it or leave it, comment on it, but this is our one idea, and I felt that was flawed. I felt that the town could have brought multiple ideas, brought multiple iterations, brought multiple suggestions, and taken feedback and brought 2 or 3 different ideas from which to grow and develop from. So I felt that that was not a really inclusive way to elicit feedback from the community. It was, here's our one idea, and they kept trying to sell it and sell it and sell it, and I didn't feel that that was a good use of community time or consultant time. So that was very frustrating, just seeing that singular idea continually kind of pushed through with only the option to grow and grow and grow. The other was, I strongly encourage council attorney, mayor, town council to really thoroughly review the letter the Cypress Meadow presented from our attorney, Lucas Peck. I think we've made a lot of really salient points, and I'm concerned that the town is putting themselves in jeopardy by jamming through a dense housing in a public parcel, and would strongly encourage all of you to thoroughly read that letter. It's probably around page 200 of the packet or 300 of the packet. Please thoroughly digest it. You've got counsel. He can give you any guidance and filter on what any of those things mean, but I strongly encourage you to review that, because I'm not sure that the town can build that level of dense, affordable housing on that lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Saul. Appreciate your comments and the feedback.
And Mayor Jason's got his hand up on
Jason, you are online and you have your hand up to make public comment, so we will promote and unmute you and go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Town Council, and Town Management. My name is Jason Boston. I'm a candidate for Eagle County Sheriff in 2026 with a clear, practical vision to foster community-focused partnerships, transparent and unified leadership, and accountability. I have lived in the Roaring Fork Valley, where I started my law enforcement career with the Maston Police Department. I later served the Basalt Council communities as a road deputy, Eagle County Sheriff's Office, and as a patrol officer with the Basalt Police Department. Through this experience, I have an acute understanding of how isolating it can feel and be disconnected from the rest of Eagle County, and how this affects access to services. I've spent my career in public service, beginning as an infantryman with the U.S. Army's 1st Infantry Division, serving on tactical and peacekeeping missions in the Balkans. Later serving as a deputy with the Eagle County Sheriff's Office, and now as a chief investigator for the District Attorney's Office, where I command a team that leads major investigations, homicides, sexual assaults, use of force incidents, and complex economic crimes. I oversee personnel, budgeting, and resource management, implementing best practices and policies that promote accountability, transparency, and interagency collaboration. I develop training programs, evaluate staff performance, and foster a culture of professionalism and psychologically safe environments. My approach is grounded in collaboration, listening to our residents, working alongside our local partners, and leading with transparency and professionalism. I understand this community and what it needs from a sheriff's office to be better served. As sheriff, I'll modernize our organization, strengthen staffing, and rebuild trust inside and outside the sheriff's office. As your next sheriff, my vision for the Eagle County Sheriff's Office is clear, necessary, and practical, centered on 5 main pillars: safety, building staffing, community trust, constitutional equitable policing, and thoughtful technology integration. My top 3 priorities are organizational structure, implementing a modern-day command structure with a unified focus on recruitment, retention, training, and career development, building a healthy internal culture, rebuilding strong relationships with the community and our local law enforcement partners, I've put these values into action, developing a sexual assault response protocol for the judicial district, partnering with our school district on Title IX, and a contributor to a Department of Justice paper on our response to domestic violence and sexual assault. I've also kept close to our community by teaching in local schools about our U.S. and Colorado constitutions, instructing at the police academy, and serving as mountain safety, keeping our mountain ski areas safe. Whether it's mentoring high school students, working with ski patrol, or teaching new recruits at the academy, my focus is on education, prevention, and partnership. As sheriff, I'll bring the same values forward: service, integrity, and teamwork. If you'd like to learn more about me and my vision for the sheriff's office, you can find additional information on my website, bostonforeaglecountysheriff.com, or through Facebook and Instagram at Boston for Eagle County Sheriff. I'm also hosting a meet and greet this Sunday, March 1st, at Westbound and Down, between 3 and 5, if anybody would care to come have a conversation.
Thank you,
Or hear
Jason.
more about myself or my vision for the sheriff's office.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else would they like to make comments? Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one coming up or raising their hands, thank you for the comments, everyone, and we'll move on to mayor and council reports and comments. Item number 4. What do you guys have? Nothing? All right, I had something, so let me pull it up. I know, so just an update from the RAFTA meeting. There is a Rio Grande Trail corridor safety task force being formed. I just wanted to make you aware, you might have already heard, Gloria, but everybody else, to address trail safety with a specific focus on e-bike management. That's something that staff is currently working on to finalize the objectives and key results, the OKRs, and work to ensure that the task force operates with clear metrics and all that. So that's getting started up, and probably have more updates on that, and I would assume that will be tied in with some of the stuff that you're spearheading as well. So just wanted to give you all that update. And with that, we can move on to our manager's report, item 5.
All right, so a couple of staff announcements. Effective February 17th, Chief Knott has retired. We have opened up the chief position internally, and we'll have an announcement in the coming weeks by the next council meeting. And then we also have another transition. Michelle is moving on to Snowmass Village, so she will be resigning effective March 20th. I'm currently evaluating the department before posting for this position. This evaluation includes interviews with staff, former managers, and comparing work plans and job descriptions to explore the department, and I hope to have an announcement by the next meeting on the direction we will be going with that department. And then before the meeting today, I met with residents of Homestead. They had several proposals that they've brought several times to staff and to council, talking about parking permits and abolishing 72-hour rule. So they will likely be coming in the next couple weeks during public comment, and would you appreciate direction from the board to either pursue that or help prioritize that in our work plans.
Okay. Thanks for that update, and congratulations, Michelle.
Thank you.
It's bittersweet. It's always good to advance in career and all that, but we hate to see you go too. So appreciate all your accomplishments in here and what you've contributed. We'll have more to say later, but I just wanted to say that. All right. Well, thank you for that, Gloria. Next up, we'll move into presentations. First up is item 6A, energy codes and electrification discussion. And Michelle and Sarah, you guys are up. Here's Sarah.
Oh, sorry, I was turning down the volume.
We're running close to, actually, we're 3 minutes ahead, so you're.
Sorry about that.
Good. Take your time.
Okay, well, as you know, I'm Sarah Nadomi with the Planning Department. Do you have the presentation?
Yeah, wrong one, sorry.
Thank you so much. Pardon? Kim's online, yeah, I'll introduce her in a moment. So this is a presentation regarding the town's building codes and a discussion around electrification in response to council's direction for more information on this topic. Just a moment. I'll just introduce online. I do have Kim Burke. She is the director with Walking Mountains, the Climate Action Collaborative, and she will be providing a little bit more information today regarding our regional pathway. And Mitch Miller, the chief building official, is also here to help answer any questions that you might have regarding codes or anything that I'm not able to answer. Is it?
This is it.
No, that's, yeah.
Oh, I don't know why it's frozen there.
It's not, oh. Okay, we can start there, sure. So just to give you a little overview so we can kind of frame this, we're talking about building codes. So I'm just going to give you a super brief introduction to our layered approach that we take with the town of Basalt. So the building code has three key components. The first is the International Building Code, or IBC, and this lays the foundation and deals with things like life safety and components of a structure. Our second layer is the International Energy Conservation Code, or the IECC, and this covers indoor air quality and factors that relate to the comfort of a space, such as lighting and insulation. So these are two kind of building blocks of our code. And sorry, I should take you to the second one, and if you can go to the third slide, this is the third layer of the Basalt Building Code as the Sustainable Building Regulations. And these are known informally as SBRs. You've probably heard these many times. These regulations are Basalt specific and exceed the underlying code requirements to maximize a building's efficiency and to support resiliency. New developments and significant alterations are required to meet the SBRs through either the performance or prescriptive pathways. Go to the next slide. Some of these I'm going to run through a little quicker, and this is a presentation that was given to the green team, and I wanted to keep the slides in here to share them with you. But I won't go into all the details for these next couple of slides. This slide is intended to show the progression of the sustainable building regulations and significant changes throughout the years. It doesn't account for these minor amendments that were made to provide clarification, but really first established in 29, and it takes us through today. Next slide, please. So Basalt has long been pursuing actions towards energy efficient development and net new construction. So this graphic lays out significant steps as well as the future steps towards achieving Basalt's climate action goals. And I'm happy to get more in detail of any of these if you are interested in hearing anything. I'm going to focus for a moment on the roadmaps, which are the tools to aid in Basalt's achieving its climate action goals. The Basalt Roadmap to Net Zero was adopted by Council by resolution in 2022, and at that time, there was, it was kind of a standalone document. It was really, a nice tool in the toolbox that we would have to achieving our goals. But there was really no way we would know at that time that Basalt would be invited to participate in a similar regional effort just 2 years later. So the roadmap has served as a guiding tool to Basalt's climate action initiatives. It's further been bolstered by the regional net zero roadmap. I'm going to focus a little bit on the regional approach here. The regional net zero roadmap provides local governments with a clear pathway to achieving net zero building requirements by 2030. The regional approach fosters ongoing collaboration, dialogue, and trainings. It supports adoption of the same cycle of building energy codes, which is important because it leads to greater regional consistency and it creates predictability for designers and builders. It prevents jurisdiction shopping and leads to greater support and buy-in. And after I finish my presentation, I'm going to hand this over to Kim Burke to provide more information on the regional approach and efforts. This is pulled out of the regional roadmap. As you see, step A, which doesn't show up great in the screen, unfortunately, but step A of the regional roadmap takes us through 2026. It requires an electric preferred code, and this is in line with Basalt's current code. Step B overlaps the 2026 year through 2029. And this requires all electric residential development with few exceptions. And these exceptions are aimed at enhancing resiliency, as currently the code does not operate on its own, or the town does not operate on its own microgrid. So this kind of prevents that, provides resiliency in the event of lines going down. And this is another section of the new construction roadmap relating to all electric residential development code, again with few exceptions. So built into the regional roadmap, thank you for following along. I keep forgetting I'm not the one
You're
doing
fine.
the turning. Thank you. Built into the regional roadmap is the new model low energy and carbon code. And so in July of this year, all Colorado municipalities will be required to adopt the state's new minimum energy code, which in part will require the adoption of either the 2024 or the 2027 IECC. The town is planning on and on track to adopt the 2027 IECC. Generally, Basalt is already ahead of this new minimum code and continues to be a leader in state for energy efficiency for new construction.
I have one question from a couple
Sure.
of slides ago.
Yeah.
What does supplemental heat encompass?
I'm sorry, could you say that
What
again?
does supplemental heat encompass as far as?
Supplemental heat.
It's for the all-electric exceptions for gas supplemental heat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Sorry, I didn't frame that at all. So.
No, that's okay. I was looking back and I was thinking, I don't know. I don't remember reading on that. I am going to hold.
So it says on here, like emergency generators, and additional heating if the electricity goes out, so that you have another source of heat. So Sarah mentioned that we don't have a microgrid here to have storage of solar electric energy. And so sometimes in these deficits of having that resiliency, having the ability to have an emergency generator that's gas operated is an option.
What's the HJ?
Yeah, we're gonna have to come back to those with.
Is that like affordable housing jurisdiction or something?
No, it's essentially your building official. It's
Okay.
like I can't think of the acronym right now, but it's
Yeah.
who's in charge of interpreting.
Yeah, and I think that's because every community is going to be different. You know, you have some communities that have large medical facilities, and they probably really require on that extra resiliency piece, more than like a single-family home may. There's going to be a lot of different needs for different communities, and I think that's why there's not like a sweeping brushstroke on this kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But I can let Kim might be able to respond a little bit more to that when I turn the presentation over to her.
And I'd be curious though, the supplemental heat, is there like some kind of, some product line out there that we're not aware of?
Oh,
where,
okay.
You can, it's like, it's enough to keep everybody safe, but it's not, you don't want to heat your house on. I have no idea if that is something, or if it's just simply referring to what like your Generac or generator would do if it kicked in.
And that's how I've been taking it, but I can get more information on that for sure. I just want to provide an overview of the building code adoption process. So generally, this takes longer than I think anyone's really aware of, and it's good to kind of frame any decision and really understanding how long something might take. So, just going over quickly, step one is, drafting those proposed amendments to the building code, including those local amendments to the IECC in line with practice and implementation in this region, as well as to ensure that Basalt stays above the code minimum standards. We're going into gathering input and feedback, engaging in outreach to contractors as well as design professionals, hosting education sessions and trainings. We've done a lot of lunch and learns and things like that. Refining and updating the draft proposed amendments based on the feedback as appropriate. And then we amend the SBRs as needed in relation to the IECC update to continue exceeding the adopted code minimums. We don't want to be duplicative with those two portions of code. And then it goes to public hearing. So there's council, 2 council readings of the ordinances, and then it goes through the adoption process. So the estimated time from beginning to adoption is approximately 1 year. So considering this, just a couple of pathways: adopting the all-electric code now or continuing with the regional approach. with the goal of an all-electric code in 2027. So if the town continues with this regional roadmap, resources that are required for the code consultants, the education, training sessions, and that process are expected to be covered by funds received through the Impact Accelerator Grant, which we'll know about in the very near future. Moving on, I'd like to just provide a look at the building permit data for a period beginning in 2022, which was a big lift for the sustainable building regs, through 2025. And looking at this, we find that the majority of building permits are not for new development, but for alterations and remodels. We're talking roofs and fences and windows, things of that nature. So we really have a very small amount of building permits that are for new residential development. And so we took a look at the fuel used by the new residential units, comparing all electric versus dual, which is gas and electric. And also looked at the solar permits to get an understanding of the number of units that are benefiting from on-site renewables. So with this, we're seeing, a very small number of permits that came in 2022 for, this covers, anything that's residential. And really, electric is, barely outweighing the dual fuel at that point. Moving on to 2023, we saw a large number of units employing dual fuel. And this large discrepancy is due primarily to a 13-unit multifamily project. The data that's represented is by unit, not by individual permits, breaking it out by individual units. So it looks like a very large discrepancy that year because that was under one permit for 13 units. And worth noting is that the 2021 IECC was also adopted in late 2023, and that's after nearly all residential building permits were already distributed for that year. I think there was 2 single-family dwellings that came in after the majority of all these permits. So a significant number of these units also received on-site solar, including that multifamily unit. So we're seeing that there is, that renewable is built into the fuel for this building. Moving on to 2024, an overwhelming number of units received building permits that year. A lot of multifamily came through the building permit process, and most of these were all electric and also contained on-site solar. So we're seeing that it really was impacted. We did have a solar requirement at the time that went away in 2024. And then this trend continues into 2025. So we're seeing really a large number of electrified units and a smaller number of dual fuel units. So the code is really getting at what we've been trying to move people towards with new development.
Is there a way to kind of dig into that trend a little more? Because Basalt is so small, right? That one building, made the red line go up and the green line go down, and vice versa. We got a couple all-electric multifamily buildings, and it looks like the scales have totally turned. Do you have more insight into how much of those are attributed to cost? Like buildings making decisions that because we're incentivizing electric, that's why? I just have a harder time seeing it as a trend line because a building or two is gonna totally flip the scales for what we're seeing in past years and going forward if a building were to come with dual fuel or not.
I can't say that I have any insight into the cost of that, and that's something that I could dig in with possibly Mitch a little bit more. He's graciously provided a lot of access to the building department data, so I've been able to call through and get an understanding of what came in at what time, what IECC was in place, what were our requirements for solar, things like that. Cost is not something that I've been able to dig into. I think worth noting too is that there was a lot of federal subsidies for things that really have weaned out or are in the way of going away. So there might have been a time when it was easier to do things like solar. I think solar is really the thing I'm thinking about there. Can't really say more about the electrification piece at this time. Do you have anything you want to add?
I would say, with the exception of that 2023 outlier, What you're seeing here is these numbers are higher in the all-electric category, even though the numbers of permits that are submitted is different every year. But that ratio is higher is because the sustainable building regulations continue to be amended and are more impactful, and the rent fee also went up. And so it's more advantageous to go all-electric than to pay the rent fee, if you will.
Got it.
Thank
That's
you.
helpful.
Yeah, it's
Thanks,
a
Michelle.
great explanation. Do you want to go to the next slide? I just want to point out that Basalt's climate action goals are supported by many regional and state organizations, as well as partners and supporting groups that are operating at the regional, state, and federal levels. These organizations serve as resources, they provide education, and they continue to aid Basalt on its sustainability journey. It's really nice to know we're not operating, in kind of a silo. There's a lot of work going on at this level. Before I hand over to Kim, I just want to conclude with this slide. We brought this to the Basalt Green Team as an overview in December and really dug into the presentation at the January Green Team meeting. So the board heard this presentation and provided some discussion as well as some feedback. It was expressed that there's finding value in continuing on its current course towards electrification at a regional level and net zero development with its regional partners, which includes code updates in 2027. Additionally, since the majority of Basalt's building permits focus on alterations, repairs, and expansions of existing building stock, the Green Team suggested that additional efforts should be put into increasing energy efficiency and enhancements of Basalt's aging buildings. And to get at that, Basalt's benchmarking program, it's currently voluntary. It is suggested that staff work with CORE to increase the visibility of this program and the benefits of participation, and return with a phased plan for mandatory participation in the benchmarking program starting in 2027. Buildings that participate in the benchmarking program are eligible for grants and rebates for identifying energy work. So I'm going to leave it there, and if you want to maybe let Kim have the floor here, and just want to again introduce Kim Burke with Walking Mountain Science Center and the director of the Climate Action Collaborative, and she can provide more insight and discussion around the regional approach and the benefit of maintaining that approach.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Great. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Sarah. Thank you to Mayor and Town Council for having me. Sarah requested that I join just to provide a little bit more perspective on our regional approach to codes. So just wanted to start off with a little bit of background in case you're not aware. Our region has been working together on codes for several years. In 2022, 2023, we created an Eagle County cohort with support from the Colorado Energy Office, with the goal of supporting Eagle County communities in adopting a consistent energy code, including EE-ready, solar-ready, electric-ready, or preferred amendments. And this resulted in several communities adopting the same building code, renewed collaboration among building officials, and workforce training and the creation of code enforcement and compliance resources. So that was really one of our first forays into this regional approach. Sarah already talked about the regional net zero roadmap. Again, a lot of this was made possible through funding from the Colorado Energy Office, and we were able to expand the cohort beyond Eagle County to include other towns and cities in Pickett and Garfield counties. And as she already mentioned, we defined net zero new construction. We developed this step approach to construct buildings with net zero attributes. And several jurisdictions, including Basalt, adopted the roadmap across the region. And then after the roadmap was published, we've been working on yet another grant from the Energy Office to support energy code adoption and enforcement. So the Climate Action Collaborative, Walking Mountains, and CORE, we've all been working across the region to host a number of code trainings for the local workforce on the 2021 IECC, including all the amendments. And this funding has also paid for a net zero code cost analysis, case studies, exterior energy offset program training, and resources such as a code messaging toolkit to help with some of that education and outreach. And we have some exciting things in the works. Again, as Sarah mentioned, the town of Basalt is part of the cohort together with the city of Aspen that applied for the state's Impact Accelerator grant. And if awarded, this grant will help pay for the next round of unified regional code updates and trainings aimed at achieving net zero construction by 2030. We put a lot of time into this collaboration, and we're really excited about the potential for this funding. And I think the important thing to point out is that through all of our collaborations, we learned that consistency and predictability are key elements across the region so that the workforce can prepare for and be familiar with the codes. This really helps increase their knowledge and comfort and improve overall code compliance. We truly appreciate the advocacy and momentum from council members to move to an all-electric code. And we encourage communities to move forward thoughtfully with regard to resources. Moving forward alone would require significant resources and time from town staff. Several jobs ago, I worked with the Colorado Energy Office, and I actually oversaw code training and technical assistance program. And I know it can take a lot of resources and time. I think 1 year is a pretty optimistic viewpoint. We had worked with some jurisdictions back then that took 18 months to 2 years to adopt new codes. And also AHJ means authority having jurisdiction, so it kind of just encompasses counties and municipalities. So maintaining this current regional approach will get communities to an electric code with just a few exceptions in 2027 and 2028. And we will seek to leverage funding and resources across communities to ensure that codes are aligned and the workforce is well prepared for these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim. Questions for Kim and Sarah, or comments?
I have some questions. Do we know, I have to imagine there's some idea of what's coming down the pipeline in the 2027 IECC regulations and what changes or new requirements they are going to hold in forms of sustainable building regulations?
I can step in case anyone else wants to answer too. I don't think we know exactly. I think we'll have a better idea later this year. Typically, the codes have been anywhere between 8 to 10% more efficient with each new iteration every 3 years, but I can't say for sure, and I would defer to another code expert on that, or maybe the building official.
Our building official is shaking his head no, so.
Yeah, I don't think they decided yet what exactly they're doing.
Okay. And then a couple times it's either been in writing or it's been thrown out, net zero construction. And I kind of want to dive into that term a little bit more because I am pretty familiar with construction. There are a lot of baked in emissions in the envelope, right? Let's not look at operational emissions. How do you achieve that with the level and amount of concrete and trucking and dirt moving and big cat machinery and all of those things that are baked into buildings?
That is a really good question. And when this region defined net zero, I don't believe we incorporated all of the embodied carbon that goes into the construction as well. We did come up with a regionally defined approach, and that essentially says that net zero is powered by electricity, uses renewable energy from the grid or on-site generation, has the ability to store energy or shift energy use to reduce peak demand on the electric grid, achieves energy performance above the base International Energy Conservation Code. It is designed to minimize embodied carbon. It doesn't get rid of it totally, and is EU ready.
Okay.
So yeah.
Then in my opinion, to be clear, when we are using that term, we're talking about net zero operational emissions, not embodied net zero in the envelope.
Yeah, so currently there's kind of two descriptions of net zero energy creation or consumption and net zero emissions. or carbon emissions. So that's,
Well, I guess my point is just saying net zero construction is pretty misleading.
It's kind of like a marketing ploy. I
Yeah.
thought it was interesting of like, it's been redefined so many times and now we're gonna redefine it again. And I guess to the extent that you could speak to it, I'd be curious, like, just a new definition for a couple years, a lot of years, forever and ever. Like I working in the sustainability space, like there's a new term every other year and then it means a similar thing or a completely different thing, but it's the same word. So I think, figuring out where we're gonna find consistency would be interesting to me, and making sure that it's reflective of whatever we're talking about.
I
We
mean,
did
it-
spend, oh,
It
sorry.
makes sense to, I mean, not even think about those in the same bit, you know, like logistics, supply chain, you know, moving transportation. I mean, like that is a different thing to reduce emissions on a different set of solutions than like how the house runs after it's put together. I mean, it's just, in my mind, it's like what we should be focusing on is that. And I totally agree with the terminology. It's like kind of like net zero construction. It's like what that kind of, I'm not even sure there's a way to make concrete, you know, like low emissions. I mean, maybe somebody's coming up with that, but I mean, that's not a thing to my knowledge.
We did spend significant time, and I want to say two significant portions of 2 meetings were spent on defining net zero, and really all the building officials in the room for the regional approach, you know, we had energy, people in the energy sector and utilities and planners and all sorts of stuff, and really coming to a consensus was a really interesting exercise, but I think it was very well thought out, and I take your point, you know, what you're saying, but I think that what we are moving forward with is the definition that Kim did provide.
Yeah, okay. Any other ones?
So I mean, look, I have a lot to say on this topic, a lot. But I don't know if this particular meeting and this is the place to say it. So I'm going to look to maybe Gloria and you for guidance on that. If this is just meant to be kind of like the work session, right? An educational presentation. And I should hold my comments on, you know, how I feel about an all-electric building code for when we're actually like kind of moving forward with that, or?
Well, I think it would be helpful, I mean, for anybody on council to kind of react and give their feedback to you guys on what they saw here, what we've seen here as far as, you know, what those different stages of the regional roadmap mean, you know, and how that pertains to what we're going to do from a policy perspective. And I think that's fair game.
So, I mean, in the presentation, what I saw was that from 2022 to 25, we have 77% of people going all electric. You had 135 electric, 31 dual fuel. That's a pretty good number. That's with some from 22 and 23, you know, pretty lower level incentives to do it, and then 24 forward, higher incentives. As we've heard from Kim, in 2027 with the IECC, just as the baseline, we can expect 8 to 10% more efficient expectations, right, which will further incentivize people. I also think that if we want to, you know, dig in and do a little bit more work with our rent program to even further incentivize people, I am firmly in the camp of, I believe in choice. I do not believe in government oversight and overstep. I believe that if we want to incentivize people to make that choice, then that is one thing. But I do not believe in demanding it or dictating it. I think that people are moving that direction on their own. I applaud Holy Cross for the work that they're doing on the grid, but I think that people should have fuel choice. And I think that people are choosing electric, so we don't need to make them do it. And I don't believe, just personally, that it is our place to do that. So, you know, that speaks to, again, the presentation and saying that, like, we're already seeing a big trend. And to me, you know, for the number of new construction permits that we have in our town boundaries, which is what this would affect, it seems to me that doing this would be just kind of giving ourselves a pat on the back and some unnecessary virtue signaling and the downside is taking people's rights to fuel choice away. And for me, that doesn't feel good.
I appreciate the comments. It's fair game in this discussion, I think, so.
Well, and again, looking at net zero, like emissions, the ICC, our own town building codes, they're already doing what they can to minimize the embodied carbon and the efficiency of the envelope. But when you look at the, comments that, 60% of our greenhouse emissions come from construction, that is mostly coming from the envelope, not the ongoing operational emissions. So that's why I believe that if somebody wants to pay the fees, pay the rent fees, not be incentivized because they want a gas-burning fireplace or a gas-burning cook stove in their homes, I think they should be allowed to. If we really want to materially change greenhouse emissions, we should focus our efforts on composting or things that are going to make a bigger difference for the size of town we are.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. What other comments are out there?
I think you look at it from Basalt's point of view, where we're not spending hopefully $5,000 a square foot to construct a single-family home, but then you go 20 miles up the road, and the rent fees are lunch money for most people, and it's really and it's hard to have a level playing field when you see the amount of investment there is to increase amenities and to provide more stuff, bigger, better, faster, whatever you want to call it. And I think the culture is the key to the case. If we have a community that recognizes that they can do the best they can and still wants to preserve some freedom of choice, that they should be allowed to do that. And if there's incentives enough, I look at my own home, if I have it, like, the question I would have is, if I put an ADU on it, is it going to be all electric, or does it get grandfathered in because my home is dual fuel? And that's what we're trying to look at. And, one person at a time taking this on, I think that's what you're seeing in the data, is people are voluntarily doing it. And they're getting incentives too, right? But every time we've initiated a change here, it's always been tougher to put the code language in place because it takes 7 or 8 years, but in the meantime, you're hoping you get a cultural shift too, right? That people, when they come in with a design, they're gonna be respectful of the attempts that are being made to, take it, you have less carbon footprint. But we're not seeing that example in other parts of our valley. Sure, build a 120-room lodge and have all electric, but have 120 SUVs delivering people to the system. And that's what I think you're talking about. And we've basically eliminated any material outlets, concrete plants, gravel pits, lumber yards. Everything's imported. And I think that's another issue. Maybe that's for the Transportation Committee to look at, but that's what our projects that I see up there now are taking. They used to take 18 months, now take 3 years, same house. And that's a pretty big footprint. So with our focus on smaller homes, which is what the county's heading towards, keeping them down to 9,750 as opposed to 15,000, which that's like 3 homes or 5 homes, I don't know. But those are the steps that I think, to your point too, that are gonna make a difference. If we have smaller homes, ADUs that can use the same fuels as already being used on a site, maybe that makes sense. And we still have 2 more years to figure it out, right? In terms of when you're finally going to adopt this code?
If we continue the regional roadmap,
It'll be
we'd be
2
looking to
years.
2027, which,
Yeah.
yeah, 27, 28, so we're heading there, yep.
Yeah, so I think, and since we're already in the lead, right? Salt's already ahead of the game.
We're ahead of the game.
Why don't we just keep that position and not wait and have the discussions now going forward? And get a consensus when there's 7 people up here and see what they feel like. But let's not put the brakes on because nobody else has caught up to us yet.
I do think it's good to have if we have a same kind of set of steps,
Steps, yeah.
but yeah. I mean, I think the more, to me, it's about the emissions, and I don't think you want the absolute to be the enemy of the good either, but one way or the other, like the only way we're gonna, despite the endangerment finding being abandoned or whatever, we gotta lower emissions. I mean, that's just whatever we call net zero and this, that, and the other. It's like we gotta lower emissions every way possible without, sacrificing health or safety, in certain instances, right? But yeah.
Yeah. Rick kind of mentioned like we're having, and Angel mentioned this too, like we're having this cultural shift, and I think we often have cultural shifts, and I would say in this case that cultural shift is due to policy. It's due to policies that implemented rebates and incentives and updated building codes. Like, I don't think it was quote unquote organic. Like, I think it was pretty curated in terms of policy. So in my eyes, we can't rest on our laurels because that didn't happen organically, and future momentum towards lower carbon emissions in building stocks is also going to be policy that shifts how people build. I also, in talking with other communities or being parts of different kind of climate nonprofits and regional groups, I love Basalt. I hate that I'm saying this, but I don't think that there's a consensus that we're a leader in building codes. That was something that surprised other people as I've presented that. So we've got all the heart behind it, we've got the intention, but I think I don't want to over-index on thinking we're ahead of people when that might not be too much of the case. Like, I think, Rick, you said it well, like, if we're ahead of the game, let's not put the brakes on. So regardless of where we are in the pack or where we view ourselves or other people view us, I'd say full speed ahead. In terms of a regional approach, well, I'll start on IUCC. The IUCC is very detailed and complex and complicated. There's a reason it takes a long time for communities to adopt it once it comes. And at an overview, high level, I think just getting your fuel source is far more important than like how many panes your windows are, what exactly your water filtration system is. So in terms of our focus, I would far rather have the focus be on an all-electric building, which has a very simple definition that has not changed and will not change, and that's also less cumbersome for the building community and figuring out, like, talk about choice, like figuring out what you're allowed to have for windows or not allowed to have for windows. Like, I'd rather have more choices on my windows, on my construction materials, on my, things like that, but have the fuel source be all electric. And in terms of talking about choice, like, I do believe it is the role of government that sometimes you do take away people's choices. Like, one example is that it is the law that you have to wear a seatbelt. Like, when we realized that cars and car accidents were dangerous, you had to wear a seatbelt. You gotta wear a bike helmet or a ski helmet, things like that. And so as we've realized since the 1970s that climate change is causing wildfires and flooding and poor winter conditions, like, I hit a rock when it should have been covered in snow this year. Now my ACL is broken. Like, we're finding that climate has all of these human impacts. And so I do think it is an appropriate role of government to be able to mandate things for public safety. And in this case too, climate is also jacking up our home insurance costs through fire danger. Climate change has cost our state $100 million in climate-specific infrastructure damage, like the mudslides in Glenwood Canyon that came after the wildfire from 2014 to 2025. Like, this is an expensive problem for society, and I think it's appropriate to address it. And so, in terms of what we ought to tackle, to David's point, to do the most on carbon emissions, or to Angel talking about composting, we should probably go after the biggest chunk of carbon emissions, and 2/3 of carbon emissions in our region come from buildings. Composting is a pretty small percentage. It's nice, I like it, I do it, I'll keep doing it, I think others should too, but that's not our biggest leverage on this issue. And so I do think it's appropriate to go after the building emissions. And let's see, in terms of regional approach, I do think like it is great we are involved in these groups. It's great what Gina McCracken is doing and the grant that Claire McLaughlin applied to for a regional approach for the city of Aspen. All of that is good stuff, but Basalt is not Aspen, right? When Aspen was thinking about adopting an electric building code, the size of those buildings in the core of downtown would mandate new transformers and things like that, that they said like physically wouldn't fit in the space and that were cost prohibitive. Like, we don't have that. You can't build a 9,750 square foot home in Basalt. So I think while it's nice to take cues from the region, like, we're not Aspen. We're not these big, gigantic mega homes in Pitkin County or those big Aspen core buildings that are struggling with this. Like, because we're smaller, we should be able to be nimble, like, if we want to be that leader. And so, like, as I look at this and the plan and I hear from Green Team members on what they would want, I talked to some that were like, yeah, no, I want an all-electric building code. And I don't know that that was reflected in the notes here. Like, I would say, let all the gritty details be figured out in the regional approach. If they want to do whatever on windows, we could consider that as a region, but I feel really strongly that we should be adopting an all-electric building code, and I'm confused as to why that hasn't happened already. So we just created a roadmap, but we had a roadmap in 2022 after a public process, after we used taxpayer money for consultants, after we did public outreach, after we looked at a code, and we were supposed to have done this by now, and we didn't do this by now. We were supposed to adopt it in 2025, and we haven't. So I guess I don't have confidence that a future roadmap would be executed on because of that. And I'd really like to try and hold ourselves accountable to what we already committed to.
Thanks, Anna.
Sorry, I'm late.
Can I, just one quick thing, I just want to, it just goes back to the operational emissions versus the embodied emissions. I do think it's important, again, to just be clear and specific and accurate, because that statistic about 2/3, so 66% of emissions coming from construction, I think is misleading, because if you drill down into that 66%, the percentage of it that is embodied in the envelope already is the overwhelming majority. That is not what this would change. So I think using that statistic to argue for a policy change that would change the operational emissions is not entirely fair, because this policy would not change the embodied emissions in the structures.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
No, and that's a good,
It's a good point.
call out. The
Yeah.
only thing that would impact it is the size of the home. The embodied emissions, a bigger home is gonna have more embodied emissions.
Of course, which
So if you have-
again, this policy code would not be addressing.
Yeah, and I think
Does the roadmap, I can't remember, does the roadmap talk about sizes, or is that not been kind of tackled at a regional level?
Sizes, I can't
Of homes.
speak to that off the cuff. I know that the Colorado New Model Low Energy and Carbon Code really is getting at sizes. And I had some notes on that. You know, the code is aims to lower long-term utility bills for residents, cut 17 million metric tons of carbon pollution, and its impact may be felt more significantly in larger projects is kind of the details on that. And that is going to be the new base code, right? And so anything that is adopted has to be, that's the basic, and has to be above that. And that's going to be all of Colorado's code. So yeah, I think it's kind of targeting those larger projects. I can't speak to Kim if you have any information if the roadmap is
Jeff might have
directly
Well, I was just
to
gonna
it.
say, the question is, how are we limiting house size?
Or it's more like,
Our
are we
code-
looking at that on a regional basis?
I don't know regionally, but, I
Right.
mean, the town code, I think, has a general limitation at 5,000 square feet.
Yeah,
So, which we're.
it's a big place, but that's good, you know, it's in the sense that, if you,
And
yeah,
then-
if you-
Yeah,
these
house
big
si-
places really.
The house
create
size could be an all-electric house, it would be as efficient as a 2,000 square foot house, but it's the service demand from the other amenities that are there, whether it's a pool or a equestrian center or some other thing, that in a house that's vacant, that still has people servicing it all day long. That's one of the things that is going on that I think is part of the conversation too. And, you know, these policies, you mentioned the 70s, you know, these policies are generational. They change over time. You know, back in the day, when I built my house, gas was the only thing you should use. And now you've seen a shift in people's thoughts and more solar coming on board. It just is a matter of time before everybody just does it. You know, whether they have a choice or not, some people will still argue against all electric, and some people choose carbon, you know, oil and gas and whatever. And, but that's why it takes so long, I think, sometimes, because these things are generational. And you know, I count on, that evolution to get us to where we need to go, because there's no question, to your point, fire mitigation, to the storms that are on the East Coast right now, that stuff, is once in 100 years, and, you know, all over the country. And this summer is gonna be an eye-opener. That's a bigger incentive for most people than giving them an extra 10 grand towards their heated driveway, or paying, you know, or non-heated driveway, whatever you want to say.
back to the embodied carbon bit just for a moment. Like, you're right. Like, cement is like 8% of global emissions. That's terrible, and we should figure out a better system, but we don't have jurisdiction over global cement supply. What we do have jurisdiction over is like the operational energy carbon emissions that are gonna come from a building, which is why I do think it's okay to be like, yes, should people work on embodied emissions? Yes, but it might just have to be a bigger scale and scope than we have jurisdiction over. And like EVs are similar, right? About half of a car's lifetime emissions come from the production of that car, but we don't have car manufacturing, but through our code, we incentivize adoption of EVs through charging, through EV-ready stuff, things like that. So I see a parallel between what we have power over for EVs is what we have power over for buildings in terms of embodied emissions in a product.
And I know, Ryan, you guys probably have something to say, but I think just to make sure, looking at the time and kind of the intent of the presentation was to answer the question about, what are you doing with the code? What is the process for changing the code? What are we doing as, all the things that came out of that initial discussion. And I would encourage us to have a future discussion about this, because it is a kind of a right versus right in the sense of rights bumping into other rights, and how do we handle that from a policy perspective. But I just wanted to kind of level set kind of where we are in the meeting and in this discussion, but also give Ryan a chance.
It's all
to
good.
make a comment.
Just two quick things. One, I'd ask Jeff what exposure an all-electric building code would have us to, say, some of the other towns that have done it, and some have had lawsuits happened and some haven't. And then I'd also like to ask our building department, Mitch Miller, just what his thoughts are on it, since he's seeing all this stuff firsthand. And I have a lot of experience installing these heat pumps at houses that I manage, and I think there's an interesting thing that will eventually come out on these of they are more efficient technically, but the delta they are creating as they create heat or cool is actually using somewhat more energy that I'm seeing physically on some of my clients' houses because of the way it runs, and it has to run longer. And yes, technically it's more efficient, but in some ways it's consuming more energy. Granted, I know we have Holy Cross and the striving for all their green energy, and it's awesome, but there is this real world thing that I don't think, unless you see it hands-on, and I know you guys see it at Skico, but you had buildings that you guys didn't put triple pane windows in because of the cost. And so what is the end cost and the end gain of turning something all electric? And I think also the cost for the consumer. For me, I have a ton of solar panels on my house and I have batteries and it's awesome, but I actually get the majority of the heat for my house from a gas fireplace. And I know that's not the best thing, but cost-wise, it's way cheaper. And, I wonder the excess cost you're putting on some consumers with that in the long run.
And then this is just for new buildings, to clarify, right? Not correct.
But it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, but with that, you have federal programs and subsidies that are expiring, that are sunsetting, that were offsetting the cost of those programs and no longer are. And that needs to be taken into account. Mitch?
I just want to start off, you are all asking the right questions, okay? And maybe I can bring some clarification to what we have going right now, what we look for in the future, and how well we've been doing. We've been doing very well as a small town. What we've accomplished is far more than most people. We talk about net zero. To me, net zero is whatever the building uses for energy, it has renewables to take care of it. So you're not taking anything and using it that isn't being replenished somewhere else. When you get into electricity and gas, it's a lot easier to renew electricity than it is gas. That's pretty simple. You can't renew the gas. Rick, you talked about services and how they affect. Well, yeah, normally most smaller houses are getting 200 amp services. That's pretty adequate for an all-electric house with some extra amenities with it. You get into the larger houses, we have a whole different discussion. I just can't express, we talk about the PV solar that we had, and we were putting on houses when they were brand new. And we've done such a great job, we've been able to slow down on the residential side. But our commercial side is really, that's one of our bigger assets that we're putting in towns, right in town. We got 16 plexes, we got 12 plexes, we got a lot of housing going on. Well, they get solar on them. And so we are putting a lot of renewable energy on there to make it work. The direction you want to go as a council is, I'll support 100%. So I won't have an opinion on whether it's gas or electric. That's not my job. We talk about cost and the increase in cost for all this. Yes, there are increased costs, but we're also going through several different types of code changes with wildfires, how we're doing our building envelopes, which is very important, by the way. Having a good value window is extremely important. And we've been, I mean, since I can remember 2003 on these energy codes really coming into their own, how well we've been going. Now to consider we're gonna get 10% better than we are now, it's a big jump to me. Because when we started, yeah, we could easily jump 10%, 15%, but we're getting closer and closer to having such great buildings, airtight, and wonderful insulation, Supplemental heat. You mentioned something, Mr. Mayor, about supplemental heat. Heat pumps, as Mr. Slack had said, they don't always handle the load to heat a house. That's a bottom line fact. We do supplement them with electric heaters sometimes, but that might be another reason why you would have a gas heater, to supplement a time and place where it doesn't handle the load. We regulate the size of the heating and cooling units per the energy code. And so sometimes we can't allow them to be such a large size because they create too much energy use. It's all a bunch of moving parts. And, your questions are great. They can be addressed. But, I think it would be something to have a better discussion about, and I'd be happy to, let you bend my ear on stuff like this anytime. But there is no real yes or no answer in some of this. It's more of, what are we doing? How far are we going? And tell you the truth, Basalt has been a real pioneer in some of this stuff. We have the up valley people with Aspen and Pickens County, and they've always been way ahead of the curve. Well, we're there with them. We're showing a lot of promise, and we're moving forward in the right direction. And I don't see us stopping or slowing down, but we are getting people more cooperative in trying to do the right thing for their homes. They want to do better energy tactics. They want to build better. They want to do the right thing. Sometimes they find themselves that they also want an alternative. So with the roadmap, this is something that has been discussed, and they're trying to do lofty goals, and they're trying to make it happen. So not to it's a good path to take and look forward to. But to get there, you have to be realistic on how fast you can get there and how fast you can do it and what is reasonable, which is what you are able to decide for this town. Hopefully that helps some.
No, it's great context, and I think, what you've said and what we've seen with the road mapping, that's the direction that we are currently moving, like, if we don't do anything else right now, and we'll obviously have to make decisions about code and at those decision points within the roadmap. I think the question, before you kind of close this agenda item out for tonight, is, do we want to have further discussion about pushing ahead on electrification? It's like Hannah has described, where it's, for type 1 construction, no gas line or something along those lines. Do we want to continue, that discussion at another point, have another work session? I would be game to have that. Hannah, I believe you would be.
I'd be game.
But I want to make sure we have, a majority of council wants to do that before we, burden staff with the time taken to do that prep.
I think it merits more conversation. Like, Mitch, you even brought up something of like, oh, the code is preventing us from having bigger heat pumps. So if we could have bigger heat pumps, does that address what Ryan said? Is that state code? Is that our code? Like, questions like that, I would love to discuss and learn more about.
I think the better educated we are, the better education we can do with the public, and they can make a choice of what they want to do. I've learned more in the last 20 minutes than I have in the last 20 years. So, we should keep that kind of activity alive and invite more people like Mitch and users, Ryan, that builders, and get some on the boots guys, on boots on the ground guys, and look to see what are some of the unintended consequences if we approve ADUs in all zone districts, but it becomes prohibitive because they're already chose their fuel? And the other thing real quickly on the fire mitigation and the WUI ordinance that's coming up, we were talking about that the other night, and I guess those building codes and things that are tied to that WUI regulation from the state are only going to apply to new construction. And I'd like to look at a way that, as people remodel, that some of that stuff can be implemented as well. You know, because it doesn't, redevelopment is the ongoing thing here. And
Not to get too on a
Yeah, I don't
tangent,
wanna get
this will
off
take
track.
30 seconds though, but it does apply to remodels where you're doing an addition that's more than, I think, 500 square feet, that addition would apply. If you're replacing more than 25% of your siding or your roof, then
Same
it's
thing.
the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
So it does apply to a certain extent to remodels.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So I think I'm hearing at least 3. Are you game to continue the discussion?
I'm always game to continue discussion, and I think the more we discuss it, the more the public becomes aware that we're discussing it, and the same vein of like community outreach about anything else, and the more opportunity they have to weigh in.
And to Ryan's point, I know there's some pending litigation related to all electric code. Basically, you cannot have gas about it violating the National Energy Conservation Act or something like that. So I can provide some information regarding that to help with your guys' discussion as well.
Yeah. And again, like the lowering emissions, what we want to do to the extent we can, but we want to make sure we do it in a way that's like actually achievable, and we all agree upon.
In a way that the community wants.
Yeah, that we all are
Everyone
on the
in the
same
community.
base. We're elected by the community to represent that voice, so we want to hear, but we ultimately have to make the calls, as you know. Is there anything else on this one for now?
No, I just think we got to be very aware of unintended consequences. I don't remember if everyone was here when Chief Thompson was talking about it, but I had asked him straight up about net zero houses, and we're building them so tight that they will, if they know it's a net zero house, especially with batteries, they will let it burn and they will protect the neighbors' houses. They cannot enter these houses because the backdraft is so strong that it's a danger. And so, and I now worry about that too, knowing that I have batteries in my house. I'm super grateful for it. I love my solar, I love my batteries, but it's a oh, wow, that's an interesting fact that we're making these choices and we're pushing this stuff that we don't know down the line what the issue is that we are causing. So just that devil's advocate.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kim, for hanging on there and
Thank you.
answering questions and your presentation. I love them. And Dave and Angela, thanks for your patience. Next item is item 6B, update on draft IGA to administer Mid-Valley Trails funds. And Michelle and Angela, you guys can go up to the table,
Yeah.
both of you.
I gave them the option to stay in the audience if they wanted to, but I'm happy to have you come up.
You drove all the way here.
Yeah.
Bust.
James, can you pull that part of the agenda up?
It's 17 minutes behind after that.
I'm being really, I'm trying real hard.
All right, so we've discussed this opportunity before. I'm going to give you a quick review of the Mid-Valley Trails funds. The committee was established in 2002 to advise on expenditures from the Eagle County Regional Transportation Authority and administer that transportation tax in the Roaring Fork Valley for dedicated trails. And really that's trails connecting to transit and interconnectivity to support microtransit and bike transport, as well as other microtransit options. You can keep going, we're on 3 now. I'm gonna get us back on schedule. On 2011, RAFTA was appointed to administer those funds. The citizen board that had been looking over those funds has been awarding, smaller grants. It's a citizen board. It's not an organization. So smaller grants for things like the Roaring Fork Mountain Bike Association, or Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers. But certainly citizen boards really are challenged with doing larger capital projects. So the fund has accrued a significant amount of money at this point in time, even after having administered grants over the years. We're at plus $500,000 in that fund, and it can continue to accrue if you wanted to save it for a certain project. So on the next one, so that's where we get here, where RAFTA has proposed to enter into an IGA with the town of Basalt to administer those funds through the Post Committee. We would have the existing Mid-Valley Trails Committee members, which there are 4 left of, join Post to help advise on these funds and how they should be spent. That request for the funds, because that's really what this is really it's like a grant request annually. So there's not an organization to manage, there's not an operational thing to manage. This is requesting funds to help support things that we may already be doing or may want to partner on. So just the bottom bullet point here is this is for financing, constructing, supporting a mass transportation system, including bike paths, bikeways, and similar. So, for example, there are things that these funds could be used for. The town has a wayfinding sign package that we've just completed the design on. We don't have construction yet, but that would be a really easy continuous thing that fits in this that Post could advise us on to use these funds for. We could save them, and James, if you go to the next one, this could be a chunk out of what will probably be 3 or 4 phases of improvements along the way to the Willets Lane connectivity plan. It's really a great opportunity to get Eagle County to participate in fixing the Hookspur Bridge. Go to the next page. Improvements to Durox Park, improvements on the next page to the CDOT boat ramp that's under design. They're just examples. Post and the Mid-Valley Trails Commission members on that group would advise on those. So that brings us to, that's the quick and dirty overview of it all. We would request the funds every April based on the Post programming and the sections of where we are in different capital projects or not. We would come to council for that recommendation and then take that recommendation to RAFTA as our annual request. So this is really just an FYI or an information, and for you to give me questions on that. If we want to go forward, we'll bring a resolution with the final draft of the IGA, which just got completed a few days ago.
Angela, Dave, do you guys have anything to add?
Just that we feel Basalt's in a better position to manage these programs. One of the challenges that we've had at RAFTA is in overseeing this committee is that we don't get land use referrals for things up in Missouri Heights. Our land use referrals come if they're going to impact a bus stop or if they're going to impact the Rio Grande Trail. So there's been some opportunities for trail connections up in Basalt Mountain that we have missed because we didn't get those referrals. So we think Basalt is in a better position to get those and be able to say, hey, there's an opportunity here to connect a trail that we've wanted to put in place for several years. So, but we do want to stay involved because there are a lot of projects in the Mid-Valley Trails plan that we're interested in being participants in. And we will be also attending Post meetings on a pretty regular basis just to stay in touch and see where we can be helpful to the process.
Got it. So I know I've been asking, at RAFTA and here about roles and responsibilities and what, that is going to take. What sounds like, if I'm playing it back, is that this is a matter of Post just taking the current members and future members that would normally go to that and the scope of what that committee would discuss and just folding it into the Post process. And then that's really what we're talking about from a responsibilities perspective. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And frankly, the Post members have been really excited about this opportunity because Post is really moving into a lot of maintenance of the parks and not a lot of trails opportunities. So this kind of bridges some of the other letters, if you will, in their committee.
Okay. And why April 15th? Could we do it earlier in the year, or is that like a deadline, or is that how does that work with our, like, you know, kind of capital planning process? If we, or do we know what we're going to request before? I mean, I'm just wanted to kind of double check.
Yeah, I think it would work for us. I think we could probably do it earlier if we wanted to, but we would probably line out what funds are available in the Mid-Valley Trails Fund with our work plan that we present at the end of the year.
Okay.
And then pick projects and things to fund from there.
Okay. What other questions or comments?
I've just had, yeah, I've just had a lot of questions about Post and the revenues that are generated and what they go for, and what our priorities are sort of shifting to police and public works. And I look at the police as the caretakers of the community, you know, in terms of security and enforcement. And I think expanding our reach into other parts of the Mid-Valley. We're trying to build a facility. They keep our parks and public spaces safe and respond to incidents, things like that. And Public Works spends a lot of time and a lot of their budget maintaining parks and trails and so on within the town. So as we take on these areas that are outside the UGB and extend into Missouri Heights, I wouldn't know why we weren't a referral agency in the first place on some development, except if it's just outside the town limits. But there's got to be there's got to be a discussion with Eagle County too, because they're the funding entity. So I think they need to sign off on this agreement at some level. And then we need to go forward and take a look at the mission of Post as it was originally, you know, looked at, as to participate in open space purchases. And we've kind of bought it all, I think, that we can buy around here. So how do we rejigger that a little bit so that funding for other needs that support our parks and open space and trails could be paid for? And this could be a short-term thing, you know. It could be that some of this funding goes towards some of the town's other priorities, and when they're completed, it shifts back to other opportunities. And that's just what I'm looking. We only have so much money in the cookie jar, and I think you guys mentioned somewhere around $500,000 that comes in from this fund. Is that what it is a year?
No, annually, it's only about $125,000 a year.
Okay.
Those funds haven't been expended over the last few years. We've kind of kept them.
So how much is in there, you think?
Well, right now, there's about just over 500,000. We're estimating right around 700,000 at the end of 2026.
So that would be the first task, is to look what's in there, and then figure out where that gets allocated now, if it does. And, you know, I'd just like to see a little more detail on it and make sure we're dealing with, and then if it's a issue for the Mid-Valley, then I think Crown Mountain should have an opportunity too. They have a lot of plans they'd like to see a bridge built across to the Hooksburg connection and all that stuff too. So if we're gonna be the placeholder or the place where that receives the money, we need to have good, strong partners with the Crawfords and the Crown Mountain folks and anybody else within our reach, Tree Farm. So that's what I would encourage anyway.
I'd just say that that's what you hit on there is one of the primary reasons why we think that it's beneficial for these funds to be administered by the town of Basalt as opposed to on RAFTA's side, because you guys are more on the ground and able to engage with these partners to a degree that we're just not able to, because we're very focused on transportation and not as engaged on the land use side and the parks management side. So that's where one of the advantages that we see in going in this direction. These funds do have limitations. They can't be used to, say, purchase open space or something like that. They are limited to transportation purposes,
primarily for foot and bike path traffic that connects to mass transit in some form. So it's not an open checkbook. You know, Eagle County provides the funds to us. We then would distribute them to you based on the work plan, and then we would have the responsibility to make sure that all of the requirements within from those funds coming from Eagle County are satisfied, which would be our role in terms of participating within the post committee, and then before any funds would be distributed, we would have to verify that. So that's that would functionally be our role going forward.
So you're the AGC.
Kind of.
Okay.
And just to be clear, Eagle County has been involved in the conversations between Basalt and RAFTA regarding this. They're very excited about Basalt actually taking on this role.
Okay.
And they will sign off on the IGA once, if we agree to signing off on the IGA.
Cool. Any other
Great.
questions or comments? You guys looking for a nod or a harumph from
Yeah,
us?
I think that's good. We'll bring back a resolution with the final draft of the IGA to the next meeting. Thank you.
You post more trails.
Yeah.
That's the end. I love it. Yeah.
All right,
Want to
thank
make the
you.
people happy.
Well, thank you both.
Thanks. Oh, I actually have one that I might
All right, now we
swap
have-
out after the next section.
Item 7A, the first of our council actions. Item 7A is an interview and appointment of prospective Basalt Green Team member. Interview and appointment of prospective Green Team member Daniel Sherry. And see you both are up there. Sarah and Daniel, welcome.
Thank you.
I'll just do a quick introduction. So this is Daniel Sherry. He's expressed an interest in becoming a member of the Basalt Green Team. Daniel's a resident of Basalt. He's currently employed by the city of Aspen. He works as a construction mitigation officer and previously served as a sustainability intern with the Aspen Skiing Company. Daniel's a Basalt local, returned after college to move back to Basalt, and has expressed just a passion for sustainability and a desire for an opportunity to become more involved in our community. Currently, the bylaws allow for up to 7 voting members of the Green Team, and we have 6 members. If Daniel is appointed, the Green Team board would be at full capacity for the first time in, I think, a couple of years, which is pretty exciting. Daniel's attended 3 Green Team meetings to date, and his appointment's been unanimously supported by the existing Green Team members. So I will turn it over to Daniel if you want to just introduce yourself quickly and maybe give a few thoughts of why you want to be on the board.
I'm Daniel Sherry, born and raised in Basalt, like she said. Went to CU Boulder to get my environmental engineering, yes, go Buffs, bachelor's degree, and then stayed there for mechanical engineering master's degree. Throughout that whole time, it's been sustainability focused. I guess just learning. And now that I'm back working, I want to be able to learn more and be involved. So I reached out, and now I'm here. Yeah.
Well, thank you for throwing your hat in, and appreciate somebody like you who grew up here and wants to come back and wants to contribute and all of that. So
Yeah, I love
appreciate
this
it.
town.
Yeah, it's a great town.
It is.
Any other questions for Daniel? Otherwise, an entertain a motion.
All-star Aspen Ski Coast Sustainability Intern. Did a great job.
Did you guys work together?
Yep, he put up with me in my normal job, so chances are he can put up with me now.
All right.
That's all I need to hear.
Mayor, I move the town council appoint Daniel Sherry to the Basalt Green Team for a 3-year term to expire February 24th, 2029.
Second.
Go Buffs.
It's been moved and seconded. We got Dieter online, so Pam, please, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Let's begin with Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yep.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Yes.
Ryan Slack.
Yes.
David Knight.
Yes.
Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Thank you, Dieter. Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daniel. Welcome
Thank you very
aboard.
Thank you.
Great addition.
Next up, we have item 7B, which is a public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 3, series of 2026, an ordinance of the town council, the town of Basalt, Colorado, amending section 8.2 and appendix C of the Basalt Municipal Code to provide for electric vehicle charging rates and policies, for town EV charging stations. And Catherine and Justin, welcome, and you're up.
Yeah. Tonight we're just bringing to you second reading of that ordinance you heard at the last meeting related to establishing a fee system for the town's 6 EV chargers, as you all have outlined in your strategic work plan. Really the only updated, well, just to review, I guess the policy itself is that the level 2 charging rates would be the 15 cents per kilowatt hour, and the level 3 rates would be the 40 cents per kilowatt hour, and that all chargers would be allowed a grace period of 15 minutes after charging is complete, and then the 25 cents per minute overstay rate would be charged. And you all directed us to slightly change the ordinance to say that only the level 2 chargers would have that overstay exemption between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. and otherwise there would be the 24-hour overstay charge on the level 3 chargers. So we made that amendment. And as I'll just remind you that moving forward, staff will continue to monitor the fees and make any necessary adjustments just to make sure the program's working over time, and happy to report back to you on how it is working. And for the public's general knowledge too, based on the public noticing period, the plan is that these fees would go into effect on March 19th. I haven't checked what day of the week that is, but anyway, per the noticing period, that's when they would begin. And it sounds like that's something that staff can accomplish with what remains to put this into effect. So
Thursday.
Happy to answer any questions. What was that? Sorry, Hannah.
Oh, you said one day of the week it's Thursday.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Any questions? This is a public hearing. Let's go ahead and just do that. See if we have anybody who is going to wants to make a comment. So I'll open the public hearing, and I don't see anybody. So I'll close the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
I think it makes sense. I mean, I'd of course love them to stay free, but I think you gotta give a little, take a little. This is a chance where if it helps maintain the program and keeps things moving along, I'm all for charging a little fee, so.
I think the intent was always to charge for them once we worked through that, right? It was
Totally.
never, just make sure everybody's clear in the public, it was getting everything worked out as far as merchant services, et cetera. And I hope everybody enjoyed. I know I charged on them, but 43 cents is a pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal.
40 cents.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 3, series of 2026 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Rick Stevens.
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Yes.
Ryan Slack.
Yes.
David Knight.
Yes.
Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Thank you, Dieter. Hannah Berman.
Yes.
And Angela has stepped out of the room. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, next up, we have item 7C, which is a public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 4, series of 2026. Ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving code amendments to the Town Code, amending sections 16.4 definitions, section 16-22 district regulations, section 16-31 supplemental requirements for R4 mixed density residential zone districts, section 16-65 plan unit developments, approval procedures, Article 19 housing mitigation, and additional Article 23, Chapter 16 accessory dwelling units. And we have James and Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. This is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance that would approve of code amendments to permit ADUs throughout town in the residential zone districts, and to approve amendments to the town's affordable housing mitigation requirements. As the council discussed at first reading, Economic and Planning Systems, EPS, completed the town's housing needs assessment in 2024, and amongst the policy recommendations that were in that needs assessment were for the town to consider creating an ADU incentive program, as well as to permit ADUs throughout town. And then also other policy recommendations were to consider code amendments to the affordable housing mitigation requirements. And as a result, the town contracted with Design Workshop and EPS to establish that framework for an ADU incentive program, as well as to produce code amendments on those topics. And at the last meeting, Eric Krongold from Design Workshop provided a presentation on the proposed amendments. Eric is here on the Zoom this evening if you have additional questions of him. Council approved the ordinance on first reading and there haven't been substantive changes. Staff did want to highlight that the Planning and Zoning Commission proposed a slight adjustment to the code language that was done by Design Workshop. They requested that the ADUs be occupied as a requirement as primary residence for tenants. And so if council wanted to go with that recommendation from the P&Z, you could add the language in your motion that's attached in Exhibit B to your packet materials, and be happy to go over that in further detail if council had questions. But that was a slight adjustment that was recommended by the P&Z. So staff would suggest asking any questions you have of Eric or staff, and then taking public comments and providing council discussion, and ultimately making a motion.
Thanks, James. Since it is a public hearing, I will open the public hearing. 7:48. If anybody would like to speak, you raise your hand online or come out of wherever you might be in this room. Otherwise, seeing nobody coming forward, I will close the public hearing and open it up for questions, comments from my fellow councilors.
I did have questions about the language in Exhibit B, and I searched through it and I didn't find the answer. So am I understanding it correctly that any ADU that's developed after this is adopted, even that's not using the incentive program, would need to be a primary residence? And how, if that's the case, how would we as a town enforce that or monitor that?
So the language that's in the draft ordinance does not require that, but the P&Z's recommended language in Exhibit B, if you chose to add that, would require that the ADUs developed that are not part of the incentive program would have to be a primary residence for somebody. That is basically the requirement that we currently have for ADUs in the R3TN zone district. Basically, one of the two units on a site, either the primary residence or an ADU, has to be deed restricted as a primary residence. So, you know, the way it's enforced now in the R3TN zone district is it's basically on a complaint basis. And, you know, we haven't received very many complaints because usually people are complaining if there's too many people and not somebody actually occupying the unit. There are other strategies the town could use. We could require people to provide a lease on an annual basis if that's how council chose to go.
I guess my question would be, you know, I feel it's somewhat of an undue burden. I get where we're trying to go with that, but if you're building an ADU and let's say you want your parents to stay there, or your elder, or a family member, or I don't know, I just feel like it's one more thing, and it's one more thing for you guys to do. I appreciate the intent, but I feel like we're kind of just going down a road of controlling everything.
If I can just add one quick thing to that, this is divergent from what Bach recommended. So Bach recommended the language that's in the ordinance. P&Z just wanted to add this extra twist on it, so for whatever that's worth.
Sure.
I think it's an overreach for me, and I just think it's difficult to enforce, and if somebody's using their own funds to build an ADU, I think that's their business.
I agree. I think obviously if they're taking part of a town incentive program, taking town money, then we can place that restriction on it, but otherwise, I don't think there should be restrictions placed on it.
Would this, if we take the ordinance as written, would that change the existing zone district where one of the two dwellings has to be a primary residence, no matter what?
It would.
So it would still make everything the same?
However, existing deed restrictions would not change, so any new ADUs in the R3TN would fall under this. Yeah.
So, okay. That, the consistency part was the only thing that was a little bit like, but if everybody's gonna be on the same playing field going forward, drawing a line, and yeah, I kind of agree with you guys.
Could it then be a short-term rental?
In terms of short-term rental
It
requirements.
was not taking town money and it was
Definitely, if they're taking town money, they would not be able to be a short-term
Right.
rental.
and if they were,
Let me make sure. Eric, do you know the answer to that?
Yes, we have a lease agreement that has to be a minimum duration of 6 months for participation in the program. So there is that kind of buffer built in.
across the board.
If they don't participate in the program, it can be a short-term rental then, is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what he said, but.
But that's why we have the huge fee.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need
Right.
another.
We're just gonna,
We don't need a layer on layer on
Yeah.
layer.
Yeah.
I think let it be.
That's a good I mean, I think it's a good clarifying question, but I agree, you already have the schema for short-term rentals, so.
And we can't completely demonize them because they do bring people to the town and fuel our restaurants. and-
I'm just
I also
curious.
feel like
Yeah, it's a good.
Oh, I'm not
It's a
saying
good
you-
question.
Yeah, like one of the reasons we wanted to allow ADUs was to allow people to either age in place or stay in place with rising property values. A way in which they might do that is build the ADU to STR it, to have that additional income to stay in their home.
Or
You
they
know?
go live in the ADU.
Or they live in the ADU and
STR,
they
Big
rent the
box.
house, but like that was the whole point, right? Is to give people
Oh, okay.
optionality to be able to stay.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a really great option for a lot of people, just some
Right.
kind of rental in their main house and live in the ADU.
And to clarify, the way the ordinance is written now, it just requires that you can't short-term rent in the incentive program.
Yeah, which.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. I think we're good as written.
Mayor, move the town council,
Yeah, sorry.
sorry, Jeff.
James, did you mention the change with the parking variance procedure?
Oh, yes, the parking variance procedure, as was outlined in the memo, was adjusted to add a variance procedure at the discretion of the town council in the event that somebody didn't want to provide the parking space on site for the ADU or couldn't. Staff thought it appropriate to establish that as a public hearing review because it might impact neighbors and availability of parking in the area.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor, move that the town council adopt ordinance number 4, series of 2026 on second reading.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yep.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Yes.
Ryan Slack.
Yes.
David Knight.
Yes.
Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
And Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Great. Next up, we have item 7D, which is the first reading of, and thank you, James and Michelle. First reading of ordinance number 5, series of 2026, ordinance of the town council of the town of Basalt, Colorado, amending the town code with the addition of section 8.8 regarding utilizing automated vehicle identification systems and amending the penalty schedule in appendix C of the town code. This is Aaron and Jeff, but I understand we want to continue first reading and table this because we're going to get for next time either a services agreement and or contract to review as part of this agenda item? Is that,
Yeah, it sounds like that would answer a lot of your questions in this. We did send you their privacy statement, but that didn't get to you until 5:30, so I didn't expect any of you to actually see that at this point. So would like to continue that conversation.
So I'd entertain a motion that the town council continue first reading of ordinance number 5, series of 2026 to March 10th, 2026, and someone can just say so moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Award for most efficient.
Let's begin with Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Thank you, Dieter. Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Yes.
Ryan Slack.
Yes.
And David Knight.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
They're privatized ADUs.
Thanks, Aaron, too. I don't know, just figured do it all. Yeah. Cool. All right. Oof, look at that. Look at that. Let's not squander it.
We're gonna get ahead.
I thought I was gonna get a break.
Next up is item 7E, resolution number 5, series of 2026. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, authorizing a final development plan application for the Cypress Meadows Parcel 9 project. And Catherine and Michelle.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As you know, in the fall of 2021, through the Basalt Forward process, the town put forth a ballot initiative asking for approval of voter-approved bonds to be used in part for affordable housing, and that ballot measure passed with a margin of 72%. Since that time, we've been using those funds with Z Group Architects to plan out the development of Cypress Meadows Parcel 9 Affordable Housing Project. The objective of this project is the creation of deed-restricted affordable housing units to support Basalt's workforce, as described in the 2024 Housing Needs Assessment Update. You all considered the PUD sketch plan application at a public hearing on April 8th of last year and approved that via Resolution 14 of 2025. And then later last year, you considered the PUD preliminary plan application at a public hearing on November 11th. You also approved that PUD preliminary plan application via Resolution 55 series of 2025. The site plan before you is the site plan that was presented at preliminary plan. And James, if you switch to the next slide, we made a subtle adjustment based on your feedback. The team adjusted the site plan to provide some additional screening and snow storage just south of the building structure. And then resultant was some adjustments to the parking further to the north to continue to accommodate the full extent of the parking needed. So tonight we would be seeking direction from you to move forward just with the final plan application. With this revised site plan, it of course would go through the next steps of the land use process, but just needed a nod and approval from you all to submit that application, and Michelle can expand on that.
Yeah, you'll have another public hearing section and another review of where we are on the project.
Yeah, so we're simply the applicant tonight, signing off on our application.
Exactly.
Yep, okay. Do you have any questions, comments? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
Thank you guys for making the adjustments, and
It looks great.
appreciate you guys listening. Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 5, series of 2026.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
Yes.
Ryan Slack.
Yes.
David Knight.
Yes.
Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Thank you, Dieter. Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
And Rick Stevens.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like you're up again, Catherine. So we have item 7F, resolution number 6, series of 2026, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, authorizing the town manager to approve a contract for fabrication and installation of basalt park signs. And Gloria and Catherine, you guys have this one.
Yeah, thanks. So the town staff is continuing the implementation of its longstanding goal to establish a cohesive and consistent signage system across the town's park networks. Since 2015 or before that time even, the post committee has been working toward the development of a unified park signage plan. That goal was further reaffirmed in that 2024 Park Financial Sustainability Strategy and Maintenance Asset Management Strategy Plan that you all approved a couple of years ago. Last year, the town engaged Aceto Landscape Architecture to develop a comprehensive signage design package. And last year, in the fall of 2025, the town contracted with GM Johnson Construction to fabricate and install the first 4 park signs. And those were installed, perhaps you saw Music Park, Confluence Park, Aberdeen Park, and the Gisela Few Skate Park. The contract that we're bringing forward to you all tonight is for the fabrication and installation of 18 additional park signs throughout the community. Again, this furthers the implementation of the town signage master plan, and there's some efficiency in doing the remainder of them all at once. This construction company already has the layout of the signs themselves, the correct construction approach, and so we'll just make sure that we have a consistent package that they can deliver cost effectively and in a timely manner. So we're bringing this forward to you all tonight, and perhaps Gloria could expand on kind of the budgeting behind this.
Yeah, and so initially you had $150,000 budgeted for this project. But when we received this quote, we thought it'd be beneficial to bring it to you, since doing it all at once would create that cohesiveness, and breaking it up into phases as we had originally anticipated. The contractor gave us some advice that they might not all be conforming if we break it up into those different phases. So it is about $100,000 more this year that would come out of post, and we do have a fund balance there that we could pull from for this project.
Makes sense. And I'm assuming we'll also do a supplemental appropriation later in the year to kind of memorialize all these budget changes, correct?
Yeah, it may not be necessary if we underspend in other areas within those,
Right.
but if we do, we spend everything that's been budgeted, then we would have a supplemental.
What's the reasoning behind them not being conforming if we split them up into phases?
So the materials might not be available, the exact same materials might not be available next year. And so that was his argument, was that they might look slightly different next year if we were to phase it out.
I will admit, I audibly gasped at how expensive these signs are.
Yeah, what is the total?
It's
been
like 250.
268.
Per sign.
19 signs.
264. My question is, how long are these expected to last? Like, what's their longevity, and what is the
James,
upkeep to keep
Can you put 'em
them
up there?
in pristine condition? And then my other, not related to those two things, was, do we have any sort of like accessibility responsibility to like include Braille or something like that? I didn't know.
Yeah,
If
so
that's
that's a good question. I don't have an answer to that, but I can find that out for you.
Didn't know, but mostly because I thought about touching it and what that would feel like. But the upkeep and the longevity are my biggest questions.
Yeah, and I guess just as to clear up, there's some pictures of some of the signs we've already installed, and they're far from a street sign, right? They're a full foundation with a metal structure, with welded metal lettering and a gabion basket with the stones installed. They're very much in line, and actually it's the same fabricator that did our big sign on the entrance to town, which was close to $100,000 just in itself. And then similar to the sign that's at the Basalt Ave roundabout, and then the one at the entry to South Side. So these signs, because of the metal material, shouldn't really include much maintenance at all. There's no painting involved. There's no sealant involved. So they should be very low maintenance, but with the metal and, I mean, labor is always the big cost these days. You have to dig the foundation, you need to pour the concrete, let it cure, and then place it. It costs some money, but it's in line with other, other things we've seen along these lines. When we priced other signs of this nature, it's not divergent from what we've seen.
And if I can give you a little bit of background as well, the general design here was started just a few years after Post was created by one of the founding Post members. So this particular design has been brought back time and time again, and we actually worked with Post to reduce the size of a lot of the signs so that these would get smaller and not bigger in all of the parks. So we're trying to honor that committee's design requests and the longevity of these. I'm not sure that we've ever actually replaced any of the existing park signs since they've been installed.
They look sturdy.
Yeah, so, but that's the background on where the design came from. These have been on the list for Post almost since it was created.
Yeah.
They will patina, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wish Nick Aceto was still in the community.
Well, he happened to be out here, and so that's how we got some assistance from him. And Julie Kolar on Post was really excited about how these turned out and the direction they were
He's
going.
doing some amazing stuff.
Did we do an RFP for this? Or is this?
No, he did the initial install last year, and he's done all our other sign. And I will say, trying to get any sign fabricator to bid on anything takes an act of Congress. So, yeah. And because we wanted it to be consistent with the signs that have already been installed. But the other bids we got when bidding this, I guess, in the first place were above what this contractor provided, so.
And this is with the 10%
reduction. Mm-hmm.
Do we have what's the estimated pie chart of $250K for 18 signs? Is a third of that materials, 2/3 labor? I'm just trying to get a better conception of how we get to that number.
I didn't request that he break that out.
Is it, I mean, it is a lot of, I mean, you think about what you could do with 200, and I know it comes out of the Post money, so, but, I mean, is everybody doing these big signs that require a crane for the park? I mean, you know what I mean? I just have to step back and think why so much construction for something that's signage for a park? You know what I mean? That's what I'm struggling with. So I'm like, man, that's a lot. I know it's Post money, and we can't really use it. We're limited what we can use it for. We can't go and use it for a deed buy down, which would be amazing. But I don't know. Is this the way the wind's blowing with what people? I just got using expressions. Is this the kind of signs that people are doing at other jurisdictions in their parks too?
So investments in your parks brings more value to your community and to your property values. And so this is one of the recommendations in the asset management plan for Post. So it is in different ways. It's like updating your playground equipment, updating the fencing, updating the irrigation systems. We don't disagree that it's expensive, but it is steel, and that is an expensive piece of material. When and if you'll have to replace these, that's the other thing, your opportunity cost of how long they're going to be there. If you ask us to go back to Post, just know that it's going to be more time. It's fine.
I know. And I'm more just I get it. You want to invest in your parks, but I'm wouldn't a really awesome 3-story slide be a lot cooler?
It won't last as long as this sign.
It could be on the horizon. You have some parks that are going to get new playgrounds in the next few years.
Really big zip line. I don't know.
On the other hand, first of all, I think they're beautiful. I really do. I think they're striking. And I think that they meet and match the update and the investment that we have made in our core. We invested a lot of money in updating Midland Avenue. we invested a lot of money in updating the park here. We are continuing to invest, if we've seen money in updating all the parks, right? I personally think it's a natural progression of continuing to update, you know, our infrastructure and the aesthetics of the town.
The Midland
Yeah,
Ave.
they're expensive, but I mean, I built stuff that, stuff that is expensive. I actually wasn't that surprised by the cost.
Yeah, I get that. It's just a sign. And I'll get over it. I'll vote yes. I'll vote yes. But it's just like that. It's not functional except to look at. Like as far, and it's not really. It's artsy, but it's not like art either. It's this kind of middle ground of like between art and functionality.
As the fish.
It's
the
I
50%
know.
tariff
I want
on
the
steel.
champagne
They're real,
signs.
and they're pretty for what they are. But yeah, it's just,
You know, the Midland Avenue Bridge and the sign, when Midland Avenue Extension was built, and all those signs along the sidewalk on the right-hand side by the library were all Nicosito. The Midland Bridge has an arch in it that was an extra $600,000, so that when you drove over it, you could see Basalt Mountain, things like that that have been added over the years. And the sign committee, it's gotta be 25 years old. And these guys,
Yeah,
the original idea was to try to draw people to the south side, because there was no signage showing south side. So people over there had businesses organized with Toklot Gallery, I forget her name, but
Lynn.
Lynn,
yeah,
Mays, yeah.
She
was the
sign
driver.
legend.
And Nick was part of a group in the community that was really engaged, that's kind of disintegrated during the discussions of the park, so he's hung in there with us for a long time, even though he was really disgruntled when he left. But, and he's doing some incredible urban planning in Maine right now. So if you go to his website, you can see some of the other stuff he does, and, good guy.
Is part of the cost of this, like, I know steel has a 50% tariff on it, and with the Supreme Court decision, theoretically, you can get your money back for those if it's made after February of 2026, which this would be included in. So, like, A, are we getting U.S. steel, or are we getting hit with that tariff? And B, is there a part of this contract that says, like, if that holds, which is the Supreme Court, so I assume it holds, like, that money comes to the town rather than the sign maker?
Jeff, do you have an opinion on that?
Is the contract structured so it's a fixed fee, or is it as a not to exceed?
It's a fixed fee.
It could be worth seeing if,
I can
you could ask him to see if it would be affected at all by there not being a tariff if it's, you know, not US steel.
I'm happy to ask.
So the other question I have is, for Doug, is the 100 grand here, or the 150 to 168, or 268, and then we are also taking money out of the post fund to make up the difference over here on the Safe Path to School 711 Bridge, right?
Nope, we are within budget on our Confluence Park project, so we aren't going beyond our budgeted amount there.
I thought we were supplementing that line item too.
Put the number down.
The amount that we went under contract on is less than what we have budgeted in 2026.
I don't want to keep going on this, but which are the 18 signs we're doing? Is there?
Oh, that's a good question.
All of the remaining parks, I don't have the list in front of me, I should have printed that out, but it's all of the remaining parks in town.
Okay.
8 large and 10 small.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some savings in there on some of the parks, but I know he's giving us a discount. The signs are beautiful. I do not deny that. $250,000 for
Heartburn.
signs is just crazy, but it's a part of life.
Can we not do any text though that's like, what do you call that word? It's like
Vertical?
vertical justification, or you read it like that.
But that's
Like
it.
that
That's
one?
how they look. That's
Yeah, I know.
I know. Now they're gonna be bigger, David. Now we're gonna get double
No,
charge.
that's a big sign. That's one of the big signs.
I know, but can we make it Make them not like that.
How are you gonna fit it? It's gonna be a giant sign.
I mean, Arbany is already there, and
No
it
one
looks like
can
that
steal
too,
it.
right? Isn't
I
Arbany?
mean, it's just the justification.
I haven't seen Arbany, I live right across the street from it.
I don't want to micromanage.
Did you guys want to talk about
I agree
the
with you,
traffic?
David, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Just when you think you're gonna get off easy.
To sum it up, they're beautiful, like, you guys put a lot of work in, the artists did, and they're very good.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing, it's in the post budget, it's in the post plan, like it's been planned, so, to me, that ticks a lot of boxes, like it's been on their longstanding list of things that they want to accomplish.
I think it's in the parking lot technically, but we have the money in the fund balance.
Well, we do have 150 budgeted.
Well, it must be another 100 out.
But it's budgeted next year.
We'll spend it once.
With the anticipation of phasing it, but we got this quote with the 10% discount and wanted to see if that was palatable for you all to
And that
go
100
forward
is
with the
budgeted
entire
next
project.
year. So we're technically just borrowing from next year's budget. I know it's more.
Or
use
there's a fund
That hasn't been
balance.
spent from prior
Is
years.
the fund balance.
Right.
Yeah.
We should memorialize that, just, I mean, like, we're doing a really good job with the parking lot versus, and like, actually, so it says, this is what we're spending, you know, this is what our budget is for the signs for this year, I'd like to see that.
And just to be clear on this, on the parking lot thing, if we're doing a public works project, which is not, I think is not, we can't enter a contract unless the money's been appropriated already. And so if we're doing this as, you know, because there's fund balance and we can, you know, maybe we'll need to do the supplemental down the road or not spend elsewhere within the budget, I think that works,
I
but.
think that was
But I just want to be clear on when you might have to go procedurally in a different way.
That's fine, yeah, as long as at some point it says we spent this much on, when you go on the website with the budget, I was trying to keep that clear. Yeah, cool, all right.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt.
Can we amend it though with the, tariff piece of like, if all of a sudden it's 50% less for his materials, we get that money, not him? If not, that's okay. You were on a roll.
You do it. Do it.
Yeah, I'll help you out here. You could have a motion to approve Resolution 6, Series of 26, with direction to staff to investigate a rebid or investigate a material price change based on the change in tariff regulation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Second down here.
No
All right.
surprises.
Let's begin with David Knight,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Hannah Berman, thank you. Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yep.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Next up, we have our last item, which is item 7G, resolution number 8, series of 2026. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, repealing and replacing the town's salary schedule for employees. Gloria, Doug, and Jenny. You guys are up for this.
This won't take long. Okay, so most of this is just housekeeping. So we contracted with Lori Graves and her team again to look at our salary schedules. And James will pull up the general government salary schedule. The last time we did this, we did a big overhaul in 2024. And so we had her look at it again, and she really just suggested a 2% slide, which is kind of based on inflation. We did do a 3% COLA for all our employees this year, so she doesn't ever recommend doing like apples to apples, because then an employee doesn't move up their scale as their time goes on. So she suggested just a 2%, which helps us keep our minimums higher for new hires and our maximums higher for our more tenured employees. So this one's just really just a housekeeping change. And then we looked at our police more in depth at the end of last year and into this year. And we worked with Lieutenant Munch a lot with making sure that this still works for the police department. And the items on the left side in red are our changes. So Lori Graves and her team kind of gave us some other different step plans that other police departments have, but we felt that our step plan we have now works well with our police officers as they move through the steps. So we thought that taking from PO1, police officer 1, all the way through PO2 would be a 1 through 9, versus doing like a 1 to 4 and then start back over and do 1 to 4 again. And then for some reason on the first rendition of this, there was a 4% width on step 3 and 4 on the left-hand side one. We don't really know why that was there, but to keep it consistent throughout the board, we were gonna update it so that it's 5% all the way through for step 8 and 9 for the new proposed one. So this whole step plan as they move up will have a 5% increase going up their steps. This, changing that 4% will affect the budget by like $7,500 because we have 4 officers currently that are in that step 9 that we will have to change from 105 to that 111. But this will be affected the next payroll. And when looking at this too, changing that 5% really gets us more competitive with our local authorities too, especially with Rifle, Glenwood, and Carbondale. And then the investigator part that was under the corporal, we talked this through, and an investigator is more like an assignment pay and can be on any of these positions. So it's never really tied to a corporal position. So we are going to use that as assignment pay and not list that here like how it is. And then that was really it. That is all our changes, just update it. We're going to continue monitoring the, what do they call it? The internal equity of all of our positions this year to make sure everyone's where they are in all of these grades and steps.
I have a super ignorant question, but tell me more. The investigator, that's like if someone's investigating a case, so it's for a specific amount of time. I just don't know.
Sure. It's a specific, I'll just stand here. It's a specific assignment. So we kept it out of more of like a rank structure. It could be a police officer 1 who could be an investigator, or could be a corporal. So it's not just a corporal / investigator. So it's like Jenny said, it's an assignment.
Like the SRO.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
good example. Yeah, just like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who's doing that now, if anyone?
Hoping to get the ranks filled in patrol, and then we're very close. But I think that's probably the next task that we need to get on, just with the amount of larger cases that we deal with. So nobody right now.
Because we had a guy, but he resigned at some point, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pastor Brad.
It's a preacher.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Good for
I saw
him.
that Nino was coming back, which
Nino
is
is coming
exciting because they
back.
did
Yeah.
Police Academy with him.
Yep.
Yes.
He's back.
Yep. He is back. So that helps get the numbers up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, he and Travis watched me shovel snow for 25 minutes.
As they should.
Nino and Travis.
Oh, was that the snow from
No, they sat in their patrol car and watched the stop sign, and I'm like,
They're probably radioing back and forth, laughing at you.
yeah,
Is that the snow plowed on the north-facing side?
yeah, Justin, it's because the plow blocked my driveway in and shovel it out.
Gas-powered snowblower.
I have an electric snow blower.
Hey, look
And you had to charge the battery 5 times to do your job.
Or shovels in the office.
6 batteries.
That's the way it is. And thanks for patrolling that stop sign, because it's good. It's good to have people not run stop signs like in the neighborhood.
Maybe put some speed cameras back there, huh? Maybe not on 82, maybe on all our side streets.
There'd be some pain.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
Okay.
All right.
Can I?
Yeah,
may-
do it.
move? May I move that the town council adopt resolution number 8, series of 2026?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Let's begin with Dieter Schindler.
Yes.
Thank you, Dieter. Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yes.
Angel Dupree Bouchard.
Yes.
Ryan Slack.
Yeah.
And David Knight.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is our agenda for tonight. If you're watching still, thanks for picking us over State of the Union, and we'll catch up with you later. We're adjourned.